Hey, spooky people, it's your best friend Kenny here, and today we are starting Tier 2 of the Unsolved Mysteries and Weird Things Iceberg by Juan the Pickle. All right, let's get spooky. The Dyatlov Pass Incident. The Dyatlov Pass Incident is an unsolved mystery that has confused people for decades. Here's what happened. In January 1959, a group of 10 experienced hikers, mostly students from the Ural Polytechnic Institute, set out on a skiing expedition through the northern Ural Mountains in the Soviet Union. The group was led by Igor Dyatlov. On the night of February 1st or 2nd, something explained happened to the hikers, which caused them to flee their tents in a panic, cutting their way out of the inside of the tents. They supposedly ventured into the freezing night, poorly dressed for the freezing conditions. Weeks later, search parties discovered the abandoned tent, and over time, they discovered the bodies of all 9 hikers. The scene was disturbing. Some hikers were found barefoot or only partially dressed. Some had severe injuries, including skull fractures, chest trauma, missing eyes, missing teeth. But there were no signs of a struggle or external threats. The circumstances surrounding their deaths remain a mystery. The official Soviet Union investigation concluded that an unknown compelling force caused the deaths, but this explanation did not stop the speculation and conspiracy theories about what might have happened. Of course not. Unknown compelling force only creates more questions, right? So if you go online, you can find a lot of different theories about what might have happened here. Many theories attempting to explain the Dyatlov Pass incident, including an avalanche. A recent study suggested a delayed avalanche may have struck the tent, explaining the injuries and the hikers' panic escape. Infrasound. Ooh. Infrasound. Some believe that unusual wind patterns created infrasound, which can induce humans to have panic and terror. Some people believe the military was involved. I think every single conspiracy has the military conspiracy theory to it, right? However, some people believe that perhaps the Soviet military was experimenting with secret weapons, and that might have caused these individuals to be in this predicament. There are also reports of strange lights in the sky, and the Soviet Union government's secrecy surrounding the incident hasn't helped that. And then, of course, there's the paranormal explanation, right? Some have claimed that the incident was caused by supernatural causes, such as Yetis or alien encounters. What about Jason? I don't know. It sounds like something Jason might have done. But I also like the Yeti theory, though I think it was probably an avalanche. I think that was probably what happened. I read that like a lot of people had said, for instance, a lot of the bodies that were found without eyes or other certain body parts, specifically genitals, and other people sort of pointed out that these bodies were laying there for a while and they might have just been eaten and moved around by animals. Typically the most simple explanation is the right one. It's not always the fun one. Maybe it was Yetis. Maybe we'll just say it was Yetis. Tara Calico. Tara Calico is a young woman who disappeared near her home in Belen, New Mexico on September 20th, 1988. Her case is shrouded in mystery and has remained unsolved for 35 years. When Tara was 19, Tara was 19 years old, and she went for her usual bike ride along Highway 47 and never returned. She was last seen around 11:45 a.m. There are no witnesses to her disappearance or what might have happened to her, and her bicycle was never found. In July 1989, a Polaroid photograph was found in a convenience store parking lot in Port St. Joe, Florida, and it showed a young woman and a boy both bound and gagged with duct tape over their mouths. Some people, including Tara's mother, believe the woman in the photo resembled Tara. However, the identity of the people in the photograph has never been confirmed. Despite extensive searches and investigations, Tara's whereabouts remain unknown. The Polaroid photo is a key piece of evidence, but whether it's actually her in the photograph, nobody knows. It's also really weird to just say for someone to have just sort of found a Polaroid and said, hey, I think this is this missing person. Tara's disappearance is heavily debated online and is one of those unsolved mysteries, unresolved disappearance cases that you'll see all over the place. There are a lot of theories have emerged about Tara's disappearance. First, the most obvious, that she was abducted. Some people believe that Tara might have had an accident. Some believe Tara may have been involved in an accident and her body was never found. Other people have suggested that perhaps she just ran away, though nobody knows why she would have run away, but, that doesn't mean that she didn't just run away. Obviously, when a person goes missing like this, it affects everybody. And her mother sadly dedicated her life to searching for her daughter until she passed away, until the mother passed on in 2006. In recent years, there have been renewed efforts to solve the case, including new leads and advancements in forensic technology. Lars Mittank. Lars Mittank is another baffling, unresolved disappearance. He was a young German man who vanished in 2014, leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions, and there's unsettling videotape. Lars was a 28-year-old man from Itzehoe, Germany. He worked at a power plant and was described as a normal, well-adjusted person, according to his friends and family. I don't think I would be described as a normal, well-adjusted person by my friends and family. So that tells you, that tells you what's going on there, right? In June 2014, Lars went on a holiday with friends to Golden Sands, a popular seaside resort in Bulgaria. While there, he got into a minor altercation with some tourists, resulting in him suffering a ruptured eardrum. Ugh. This incident was the beginning of a bizarre series of events that followed. Lars' behavior became increasingly erratic after the injury. He became paranoid, convinced he was being followed, and that people were trying to kill him. He contacted his mother, expressing his fears and anxieties. Due to his ear injuries, he stayed behind in Bulgaria while his friends flew back to Germany. I would have gone back to Germany if I had an injury. I wouldn't stay in Bulgaria for medical treatment. But what do I know? Maybe they have great doctors in Bulgaria. He checked into a hotel or a hostel. I think it might have been a hostel. Not that hostel. Not, the movie Hostel, but. And there's a lot of security cameras from the hostels. A lot of footage from security cameras around the hotel where he's exhibiting bizarre behavior, right? He looked agitated, paranoid, constantly looking over his shoulder. And then He suddenly left the hotel, leaving behind his belongings, and ran into a nearby field. This is the last known footage of Lars Mittank. Video footage. Lars was later seen at an airport where he was scheduled to fly home. However, he panicked during a consultation with the airport doctor and fled the building. Again, leaving his belongings behind. Witnesses last saw him running into the surrounding woods, and he has never been seen or heard from since. So what happened to Lars? Some people think he had a mental breakdown. They believe that Lars suffered a psychotic break triggered by his head injury or a pre-existing condition. Others believe that Lars may have been the victim of foul play of a crime. Other people believe that he disappeared on purpose. I mean, really, whenever you have a disappearance, there's only like so many options, right? Either the person was, kidnapped, the person disappeared on their own, the person went crazy, or the person died. Maybe there's some other explanations, but, a lot of these, when people are like, what happened? Well, either they decided to leave or, either they left on purpose and disappeared on purpose, or it wasn't on purpose and either there was an accident or someone made them leave, right? The Babushka Lady. The Babushka Lady is a mysterious figure that is in the footage of the assassination of John F. Kennedy. She's called the Babushka Lady because she wore a headscarf on her hair, which resembled a babushka. So, what's the deal with the Babushka Lady? Well, she appears in photographs and other footage, she appears to be holding a camera when the JFK assassination occurred, which makes people believe that she may have crucial footage of the event. Now, we talked about this earlier, and I think everybody sort of knows this, but, the John F. Kennedy assassination is one of the biggest, broadest conspiracy theory events in existence. And, based on the circumstances, everybody wants as much information as possible. So the idea that she may have camera footage, or there may be this camera footage out there that may explain some of it, people want to see it. But nobody knows who she is. She supposedly never came forward, and no one has ever been able to identify her. So this footage that she may have had may be lost media, which is a concept that fascinates me. This idea that there's known to be something that exists, media recording of something that exists, and no one has ever seen it. Now, personally, lost media is more interesting to me when there's more of a broad audience to it. For example, my mind was blown to find out that the Lamb Chop show, the Lamb Chop sing-along show, huge amounts of the series are completely missing, right? Huge amounts of the Lamb Chop show you cannot find recordings of anywhere. And so you can't just go to the store or go online and say, I'm going to binge watch the entire series of Lamb Chop, and including a significant amount of the last season of Lamb Chop. No one has any copies of it, or no one is aware of any archive of any copies of it. So this footage that she would have had is considered lost media, but it's not exactly, it's fascinating because it's believed to be out there and no one's seen it, but it also was like a recording that was recorded for her. So it's not like there were like a lot of people that would have seen this. And that's the type of lost media that sort of fascinates me, is when, thousands, if not millions of people see or experience something, but nobody can find it. JonBenet Ramsey. I think most people know this case. JonBenet Ramsey was a 6-year-old American child who was tragically murdered in her family's home in Boulder, Colorado on December 26, 1996. She was a child beauty pageant contestant. Her death is one of the most high-profile unsolved murder cases of all time. Here's what we know. On the morning of December 26th, Patsy Ramsey, who was JonBenet's mother, found a ransom note demanding $118,000 for her daughter's safe return. After discovering JonBenet was missing from her bed, John Ramsey, her father, later found her body concealed in the basement of her home. The autopsy revealed that JonBenet had been struck on the head and strangled. The cause of death was officially listed as asphyxiation by strangulation and associated craniocerebral trauma. Man, I nailed that pronunciation. The press was all over this case when it happened. I was young at the time, but I remember when JonBenet Ramsey went missing, and I remember when her body was found, and I remember this whole story. So the investigation was highly publicized. It was all over the press. There were initially problems with the crime scene. The crime scene became contaminated. They allowed friends and family to move around the house, which may have caused problems with the evidence collection. The ransom note, and specifically the length of it and its language, was also suspicious. JonBenet's parents, John and Patsy Ramsey, as well as her older brother Burke, were the initial suspects. However, they maintained their innocence and were never charged. In 2008, DNA evidence seemingly cleared the family of involvement. Now, I would have told you that I believed that her family was involved as recently as a few months ago. But since then, I have had the opportunity to do a little more research on this topic. And yeah, I think the DNA evidence suggests that they were at least not the ones who actually did the murder. So it's an ongoing mystery. The case remains unsolved. There are lots of theories, ranging from an intruder to someone the family might have known, but nobody knows what happened. This is one of those unsolved disappearances that, like I said, everybody knows about. I think most people would blame the parents in this situation. And you know what? If the parents actually weren't involved, and it appears that they weren't, then that's horrible. Not only did they lose their child, but they had to be part of this awful, suspicion, being accused of something that they had nothing to do with. And that's terrible. The Black Dahlia murder. The Black Dahlia murder is the murder of Elizabeth Short, a 22-year-old aspiring actress. And this murder is unsolved, and it became a media sensation, mostly due to the mystery behind it, as well as how gruesome and disturbing of a crime it was. On January 15th, 1947, Elizabeth Short's severely mutilated body was discovered in a vacant lot in Leimert Park, Los Angeles. Her body had been bisected at the waist and drained of her blood. Her face had been slashed from the corners of her mouth to her ears, which is called a Glasgow smile. As I had suggested, Elizabeth Short, who was given the nickname the Black Dahlia by the press, was an aspiring actress who had moved to Los Angeles from Massachusetts. The Los Angeles police Department launched a massive investigation, but despite numerous leads and suspects, the case remains unsolved. The gruesome nature of the crime and the lack of a clear motive has made this case a very popular unsolved mystery. Now, there are a lot of theories, of course. There's always a lot of theories, right? Some people believe that it may have been gangsters, a serial killer. There was a doctor who was suspected to be involved. However, none of these theories have been proven. The Black Dahlia case became a media sensation, with newspapers and magazines providing extensive coverage and fueling public interest. This case has been the subject of many books, shows, YouTube videos, etc. Frederick Valentich. Frederick Valentich was a 20-year-old Australian pilot who mysteriously disappeared while flying a Cessna over Bass Strait on the evening of October 21st, 1978. His last communication with air control was about an unidentified object hovering above him, making this case a popular subject for UFO enthusiasts and others who like unexplained phenomenon, like us. Valentich was on a 125-mile training flight from the Moorabbin Airport to King Island. About an hour into the flight, he radioed Melbourne Air Traffic Control to report an unidentified aircraft flying above him. He described the object as having 4 bright landing lights and a green light, and said it was moving at high speed. Valentich reported that the object was hovering over him and that his engine was running roughly. He then made his famous final statement: "It's not an aircraft." A strange metallic scraping sound was then heard over the radio before all communication was lost. There was an extensive air and sea search conducted, but they never found a trace of Valentich or his aircraft. The official investigation concluded that the cause of the disappearance was unknown, which, of course, creates speculation and conspiracy theories. Some of the theories that have attempted to explain Valentich's disappearance are that there was a UFO encounter. A lot of people believe that Valentich encountered a UFO and his disappearance was a result of an alien abduction or some other unexplained phenomenon. Others believe that Valentich became disoriented and crashed into the sea, possibly due to a medical event or some other type of disorientation. And of course, there are people who believe that Valentich faked his disappearance to escape and start a new life. Personally, I'm going to give this a UFO. Well, I don't know. It really has like the classic UFO story to it. So I kind of want it to be a UFO, but it was probably just, he was probably just hallucinating and crashed his airplane. But that's not fun. The bloop. Oh, yeah. The bloop was a powerful, ultra-low frequency underwater sound detected by the U.S. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration in 1997. It was a mysterious rumble recorded in the Pacific Ocean, and its origin has baffled scientists and sparked speculation over the years. So what was the bloop? Boop. No, not boop. It's bloop. All right. Put some respect on that. The bloop was a very loud, low frequency sound that is unlike anything previously recorded. The sound was detected by hydrophones, which are underwater microphones, over 3,000 miles apart, which means it was a very powerful bloop, very powerful noise. Scientists were able to triangulate the bloop to a remote point in the South Pacific Ocean west of the southern tip of South America. Due to its loudness and unusual nature, many speculated the bloop was produced by a massive marine creature, possibly larger than any known whale. This fueled imaginations and led to comparisons with mythical sea monsters. You know what the bloop was? I'll tell you. The bloop was Cthulhu. I'm telling you right now. That bloop, it was Cthulhu. He was mad. Or maybe he was burping. One of the two. In 2012, scientists determined that the bloop was likely caused by an ice quake, a large iceberg cracking and breaking away from an Antarctic glacier. This explanation was supported by further analysis and the increasing frequency of ice quakes. Look, it's not as fun as Cthulhu. It's not as fun as it being a giant sea monster, mad or burping or waking up or something. So, once again, scientists are out here ruining everything for us, ruining all our fun, right? Missing 411. Missing 411 refers to a series of books and documentaries by David Paulides that explore the unexplained disappearances of people in national parks and other wilderness areas. Paulides, a former police officer, has compiled thousands of cases that he argues shares unique characteristics and defy conventional explanations. Most of these cases involve disappearances in close proximity to trails or campsites, often in areas where extensive searches yield no clues. Some individuals vanished without a trace, while others are found deceased in unexpected locations or under strange circumstances. See, the thing about this is you shouldn't mess with nature. And I think that's a big theme to a lot of these disturbing cases is you find people, a lot of these unsolved mysteries with these strange events. You find a lot of people who decide to mess with nature. And don't mess with nature. You will not win. While the missing people vary in age and background, Paulides suggests some commonalities, such as the individuals being physically fit and experienced in outdoors. I think that's pretty obvious, right? If you're physically fit and outdoors people tend to be physically fit, you're more likely to be lost in some sort of, forest preserve or national park, because those people are more likely to be the ones out running around in those places, right? People who aren't in very good shape or don't like to go out in nature aren't out running around Yosemite or wherever, right? Paulides argues that many of the cases can't be explained by traditional causes like animal attacks, accidents, or getting lost. He points to factors like unusual weather patterns, search dogs that were unable to find scents, and the discovery of bodies in seemingly inaccessible locations. Paulides highlights clusters of disappearances in specific geographic areas, particularly in national parks and forests. Paulides presents these cases in a factual manner, relying on the official reports and interviews with park rangers and family members. He does not come up with definitive explanations, and he instead focuses on the unusual aspects of the disappearances and raises questions about the potential causes. See, me, I'm willing to make definitive explanations. Now, I just make them up, or I just say what I think. But, you know, I get that this guy is more of a scientist than I am, where, you know, I'm more of a, I don't know, person who has opinions. But that's what you're here for. You aren't here for me to sit here and read Wikipedia to you, right? Missing 411 has brought a lot of suggested people who suggest that perhaps there is some sort of predator, you know, human predator causing these disappearances, which is possible. It could be a group of unknown predators, right? Others believe that perhaps it is an unknown animal predator, you know, the existence of undiscovered predators in these wilderness areas. Others believe it's paranormal activity, supernatural forces, ghosts, cryptids, aliens, Mothman, Bigfoot. Probably not the Loch Ness Monster. Nessie's probably innocent. Other people believe it's environmental factors that are responsible. And I think that's certainly possible too in some of these cases. You know, you're out there camping and all of a sudden there's a bad storm, which causes you to be disoriented, and then maybe something happens. Polita's work has also drawn criticism, with some people arguing that he overstates the unusual nature of the disappearances and selectively presents information to support his claims, which is fair. Most people do that. Critics contend that many cases can be explained by conventional factors and that the perceived patterns are due to confirmation bias. Again, that's entirely possible. Skinwalkers. In Navajo culture, a skinwalker is a type of harmful witch who has the ability to turn into, possess, or disguise themselves as an animal. This is a concept that's rooted in Navajo tradition and is not discussed with people who are not Navajo. Skinwalkers are malevolent. They're considered evil beings who use their power to cause harm, misfortune, and even death. They represent the antithesis of Navajo values. The most defining characteristic is the skinwalker's ability to transform into animals, often those with nocturnal habits like coyotes, wolves, owls, and crows. This allows them to move stealthily and undetected. The subject of skinwalkers is taboo within Navajo culture. Speaking about them, especially at night, is believed to attract their attention or even bring misfortune. I'm recording this pretty late, so I hope that's not true. I don't want to attract a skinwalker. According to Navajo belief, a person becomes a skinwalker by committing a terrible act, often involving the murder of a close relative. This act is seen as a perversion of Navajo spiritual practices and a betrayal of their community. In addition to shape-shifting, skinwalkers are believed to possess other supernatural powers, such as mind control, influencing the weather, and causing illness. They are said to be incredibly fast and strong and can mimic human voices to lure victims. The concept of skinwalkers originates in Navajo tradition, but it's also made its way into popular culture and has been depicted in horror stories, movies, and TV shows. Although, of course, how they're depicted in movies and TV shows deviates from the traditional Navajo understanding and, you know, portrays them as more of, like, you know, more two-dimensional monsters and less complex figures than what they are. Skinwalker Ranch. Skinwalker Ranch, also known as Sherman Ranch, is a 512-acre property located in Utah's Uinta Basin. It has gained notoriety for its alleged paranormal activity and UFO sightings, making it a hotbed of speculation. Ooh, hotbed of speculation. The ranch's reputation for strange activity dates back to the 1950s with reports of UFO sightings. Numerous reports of unidentified flying objects, strange lights, and other aerial phenomena. There have been a lot of livestock being found mutilated with unusual wounds and missing organs, as well as reports of ghosts, poltergeist, and other types of paranormal activity. In 1994, Terry and Gwen Sherman purchased the ranch and soon began experiencing a series of bizarre events. They reported encounters with UFOs, strange creatures, and inexplicable phenomena that frightened them and their animals. They eventually sold the ranch to Robert Bigelow in 1996. Bigelow was a wealthy businessman with an interest in UFOs. He founded the National Institute for Discovery Science, or NIDS, and used the ranch to conduct scientific investigations into strange phenomena. NIDS researchers documented numerous unusual events, but no definitive explanations were ever found. In 2016, Bigelow sold the ranch to Adamantium Real Estate, which was owned by Brandon Fugel. And Fugel has continued the investigation into the ranch's mysteries, and the property is now the subject of a History Channel series called The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch. Numerous theories attempt to explain the strange activity at Skinwalker Ranch, including an interdimensional portal. Ooh. Some believe the ranch is the gateway to other dimensions or realities. Of course, extraterrestrial activity. There have been a high number of UFO sightings, which led people to believe that this ranch is a hotbed for aliens. And others believe it's ghosts, poltergeists, and other supernatural entities, because of course. Others believe that there's unusual geographic or magnetic features in this area which cause the strange phenomena. The Flatwoods Monster. See, I like monsters. And this is a West Virginia monster. So, I don't know if you saw my video on Mothman, but go watch it. But this is another West Virginia monster. The Flatwood Monster, also known as the Braxton County Monster or the Phantom of the Flatwoods. I like Phantom of the Flatwoods personally. Is a creature reportedly sighted in the town of Flatwoods, West Virginia on September 12, 1952. The incident but quickly became a local legend and a popular subject for UFO enthusiasts and cryptozoologists. On the evening of September 12th, 1952, a group of young boys witnessed a bright object snake across the sky and apparently land on a nearby hilltop. A local woman, Kathleen May, and her two sons went to investigate with those two boys. Upon reaching the site, the group reported seeing a pulsating red light and a large creature with a glowing face and a strange metallic body. The creature was described as being around 10 feet tall with a red face, a green body, and a head shaped like an ace of spades. Not ace of base. I saw the sign. I saw the monster. Some witnesses saw it had claw-like hands, and the creature emitted a hissing sound and seemed to glide towards them before they fled in terror. The incident caused a stir in the small town of the Flatwoods and attracted national media attention. Local police and even the U.S. Air Force investigated the sighting, but no concrete evidence was found to explain the strange encounter. Over the years, several explanations have been proposed for the Flatwood Monster sighting. The most likely explanation is that the witnesses misidentified some sort of animal, such as a barn owl. Owls can be scary. Let's not laugh. Owls can be scary. The owl's eyes could have been reflected. It could have reflected the light in its silhouette distorted by shadows, and fear could have created the illusion. The bright object may have been a meteor, and the creature sighting may have been a result of the meteor's effects on the environment, such as the lighting or even the atmospheric disturbances, which could have caused visual distortions. Others believe that this was just an event of mass hysteria where people were freaked out in the dark and it caused, by their fear, it suggested a bizarre looking animal or creature. Despite the likely explanations, the Flatwood Monster remains a popular legend in West Virginia. The Betty and Barney Hill abduction is one of the most famous and influential cases in UFO lore. In 1961, this American couple claimed they were abducted by extraterrestrials while driving home from a vacation in Canada. Their story, which emerged through hypnotic regression, helped shape the modern narrative of alien abduction. On the night of September 19th, 1961, Betty and Barney Hill were driving through the White Mountains of New Hampshire when they noticed a bright light in the sky. They stopped to observe it, and Barney, using binoculars, described seeing a strange craft-like object with windows. As they continued driving, the object seemed to follow them and eventually hovering directly over them. They experienced a period of missing time, and when they arrived home, they realized they had lost several hours and had no memory of what happened. They were understandably upset by losing all that time and had nightmares following the incident. So the Hills sought the help from a psychiatrist named Dr. Benjamin Simon. Dr. Simon put them under hypnosis, and they separately recounted a chilling story of being stopped on the road by strange beings, taken aboard a disc-shaped craft, and subjected to medical examinations. The Hills described the beings as humanoid with large heads, almond-shaped eyes, and gray skin with small noses and mouths. They were often referred to as grays in subsequent accounts and have become a stereotypical image of aliens in our culture. Betty described a procedure the aliens conducted on her where a needle was inserted into her navel, and Barney recalled having his teeth examined. Betty, under hypnosis, drew a star map that she claimed to have seen on board the craft. Years later, an amateur astronomer, Marjorie Fish, claimed the map corresponded to the Zeta Reticuli star system. The Betty and Barney Hill abduction story was widely publicized, has been part of books, novels, etc. But really, the little gray guys with the big eyes and the big heads and the small eyes and small mouths, I mean, this has been the stereotypical alien that you see pretty much everywhere. So this was one of the foundational alien encounters. Edward Mordrake. Personally, I think we need less Drake, but Edward Mordrake was a guy who he was a medical anomaly and an urban legend. Let's just say that. He was supposedly born in the 19th century and described as a young English nobleman cursed with a second face on the back of his head. When people are like, I got eyes in the back of my head, this guy came up. This was the first guy. According to stories, Mordrake's second face was a grotesque, demonic visage that couldn't speak, but could laugh, cry, and whisper horrible things to him. Mordrake was reportedly driven to madness by his demon face, pleading with doctors to remove it, but no one dared attempt the surgery. The legend claims he ended his life at the age of 23. Now, the story of Edward Mordrake is a popular story, but there's no any actual evidence that he actually existed. The most likely origin of this case is from a 1995 article in the Boston Sunday Post that described various human freaks, which is not the term we use now, including Mordrake. The article was later cited in the book Anomalies and Curiosities of Medicine in 1896. Now, here you thought fake news was a new phenomena, right? You know, at least now we can sort of fact check it to a certain extent before it goes crazy. Like back then, you could just print something about some guy with another face, and then all of a sudden it's in textbooks and stuff, right? Mary Tofts. Mary Toft was an Englishwoman from Godalming, Surrey, who in 1796 became the subject of considerable controversy when she tricked doctors into believing that she had given birth to rabbits. Mary Toft was a young illiterate servant, and her bizarre claim that she had given birth to several dead rabbits attracted the attention of local doctors and eventually reached King George I, who sent his personal physician to examine Mary. Toft's claims and the evidence she produced convinced many prominent physicians and surgeons of the time. She became a national sensation, with people flocking to Godalming to witness this supposed medical marvel. However, her hoax began to unravel when discrepancies emerged in Mary's story and the rabbit remains. Further investigation revealed that Mary was inserting the rabbit parts into her vagina to fake the births. And she eventually confessed to committing this hoax. This event became a major scandal and exposed the credulity of the medical profession at the time. Toft was briefly imprisoned for fraud, but was later released without a charge because, I mean, I'm guessing she probably didn't make much money off of having rabbit parts come out of her vagina. So why would doctors believe her? Well, in the 18th century, understanding of reproductive biology was limited. And the possibility of such a bizarre birth was not entirely dismissed by the medical community. There was a belief of the idea of maternal impressions, where a mother's experiences during pregnancy could influence the fetus. And I guess influence the fetus into turning into a rabbit. I mean, I kind of feel bad for her. It seems like she told some sort of crazy story, and people should have been responsible and said, no, this isn't what happened, but they didn't. And then she got kind of stuck in this bad lie where she had to keep claiming that there were rabbits coming out of her. Gloria Ramirez. Gloria Ramirez was a woman from Riverside, California, who became known as the Toxic Lady after her death in 1994. After she passed, several hospital workers became ill. This is one of the strangest medical mysteries in recent history. On February 19th, 1994, Gloria Ramirez, who was suffering from advanced cervical cancer, was rushed to the emergency room at Riverside General Hospital. As medical staff attended to her, they noticed several unusual things. Her body appeared to be covered in an oily sheen. Not Charlie Sheen, oily sheen. A strange, sweet, garlicky odor was emanating from her mouth. Staff reported smelling ammonia coming from her blood. As they drew blood and administered treatments, several hospital workers began to experience a range of symptoms, including fainting. Several nurses and a respiratory therapist fainted. Respiratory distress. Others experienced difficulty breathing, burning sensations in their eyes and throats, and muscle spasms. Hospitalization. Several staff members required hospitalization, and one nurse even spent 2 weeks in ICU. The incident prompted an investigation by the Riverside Coroner's Office and the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory. Initial theories focused on mass hysteria or an environmental toxin, but no conclusive cause was ever found. One of the most prominent theories was that Gloria Ramirez may have been self-medicating with dimethyl sulfoxide. It's theorized that the oxygen administered to her in the ambulance could have reacted with the dimethyl sulfoxide to form dimethyl sulfate, a highly toxic chemical. The act of drawing her blood with a syringe may have released the chemical into the air, causing the reaction in the hospital staff. Despite this theory, which sounds reasonable to me, although I don't know why someone would be, well, I do know why someone would be self-medicating with some sort of weird chemical on their body, but this isn't that type of video. But there are lots of other theories online of what exactly caused Gloria Ramirez's death and what exactly led to the hospital people being sick afterwards. Mike the Headless Chicken. Mike the Headless Chicken was a rooster that became a national sensation for living for over 18 months after his head was chopped off. In 1945, farmer Lloyd Olson of Fruita, Colorado, was preparing to have chicken for dinner. Ooh, that sounds bad. He chose Mike, a 5.5-month-old rooster. Now, why he named him Mike, I don't know. Hey, Mike, I'm going to have you for dinner. Olson aimed to leave enough of the neck so his mother-in-law could still enjoy the neck meat. Yeah, you got to make sure your mother-in-law gets the neck meat. However, the axe missed the jugular vein and a portion of the brainstem remained intact. To everyone's astonishment, Mike didn't die. He was able to remain balanced on a perch and even attempted to preen and crow, but only a gurgling sound came out. Olson then decided to care for Mike, feeding him with an eyedropper and clearing mucus from his throat. Kind of shitty. You should have just let him die. Olson, farmer man, let Mike go. Mike's incredible story spread and he became a sideshow attraction. Olson took Mike on tour, charging people to see Miracle Mike. And he even appeared in Time and Life magazine. Sadly, Mike died in March of 1947. While on tour in Phoenix, Arizona, he choked on a kernel of corn and died. R.I.P. Mike the chicken. Taken out by, well, I guess it probably wasn't popcorn, but corn. Chris Kremers and Lisanne Froon were two Dutch students who disappeared on April 1st, 2014, while hiking in Panama. Now, if you disappear on April Fool's Day, it's probably the worst day to disappear, right? Like, people are going to think it's bullshit, that you're just playing some sort of joke. This case is still unsolved, despite the discovery of some of their remains. Chris Kremers was 21. Lisa Froon was 22. They both were described as intelligent, responsible people. They traveled to Panama for a 6-week vacation, intending to learn Spanish and volunteer with local children. On April 1st, they went for a hike on the El Pianista Trail near Boquete, a popular tourist destination. They were accompanied by a dog belonging to the owners of the guest house. They were last seen having lunch with two Dutch men before embarking on their hike. They failed to show up for a guide tour they had scheduled later that day. There was an extensive search involving local authorities, volunteers, and even a Dutch search and rescue team. 10 weeks after their disappearance, a local woman found Chris's backpack near a riverbank. It contained their phones, camera, money, and passports. Over the following months, bone fragments and other remains were found scattered along the river, confirming the fact that they were deceased. Despite finding some of their remains, there are unanswered questions, which has fueled a lot of speculation online. Their exact cause of death is unknown, but foul play is suspected. The cameras that were found contained photos taken after they had disappeared, including nighttime images in the jungle and a series of disturbing, blurry photos that have fueled speculation. The phone records show that they attempted to call emergency services, but the calls failed due to lack of a signal. There are several theories online. First, they had an accident. They may have gotten lost and succumbed to the elements or suffered a fatal accident. Others believe they were murdered. And of course, there are also some more of the off-the-wall theories, such as getting lost in a drug trafficking area or encountering dangerous wildlife. I think this goes back to what I said earlier, which is, don't mess with nature. I don't have a problem with hiking or anything like that, but, don't go too far out there. And if you do, make sure that you are prepared, I guess. I don't know. Susan Powell. Susan Powell was a 28-year-old American woman from West Valley City, Utah, who disappeared under mysterious circumstances on December 6, 2009. Maura Murray. Maura Murray is an American woman who mysteriously disappeared on the evening of February 9th, 2004, after a car accident on Route 112 in Haverhill, New Hampshire. Her case remains unsolved, and her whereabouts are unknown. Maura was a 21-year-old nursing student at the University of Massachusetts Amherst. She was a dedicated athlete, participated in track and field in high school, and attended West Point for a period. Prior to her disappearance, Maura had faced some challenges, some recent troubles. She had been in a car accident. She was having troubles with her job, and she had been accused of or charged with the theft of a credit card. On February 9th, Maura's car, a black Saturn sedan, went off the road and hit a snowbank. A nearby resident and a bus driver saw Maura at the scene, and she reportedly told them she was waiting for AAA. However, there's no record of her calling for assistance. When the police arrived approximately 10 minutes later, she was gone. Despite extensive searches and investigations, no trace of Maura has ever been found. Maura's disappearance is a mystery. Why was she in New Hampshire? Maura had not informed anyone that she was going to New Hampshire, and her reasons for being there remain unclear. Where did she go? Theories range from her deciding to run away to foul play being involved. Again, there are several theories. One of the most prominent theories, and possibly one of the most, I really think the two most likely theories are either, she either decided to disappear, and, maybe the car accident was either the catalyst that made her decide to disappear, or, you know, there was foul play involved and someone did something to her. No one knows. This case has never been solved. The wow signal. The wow signal was a strong narrowband radio signal detected by Ohio State University's Big Ear Radio Telescope on August 15th, 1977. It got its name from astronomer Jerry Amen, who circled the signal on the printout and wrote "wow" next to it due to its surprising strength and unusual characteristics. See, I like that story. The signal bore the expected hallmarks of extraterrestrial origin. It was a very specific frequency, suggesting a deliberate transmission rather than a natural phenomenon. The signal was much stronger than the background noise, indicating a powerful source. It lasted for 72 seconds. The signal appeared to come from the direction of the constellation Sagittarius, but its precise origin remains unknown. Despite numerous attempts to detect it again, the signal has never been observed since. A theory that a lot of people like is that the wow signals were a deliberate transmission from an alien civilization. However, people point to the lack of repetition to make this unclear. The belief is if aliens were trying to contact us, they probably wouldn't try once. They would probably do it a lot of different times. There are some other natural explanation theories, such as a comet or a signal reflected off space debris. However, none of those ideas really explain all of it. A recent study suggests the signal may have been caused by an astrophysical event involving a cold hydrogen cloud energized by a powerful star, causing it to emit a laser beam of radiation. See, I like that explanation. Just some weird stuff happening up in the sky. It seems right to me. Anyway, that's been part 1 of tier 2 of the Unsolved Mysteries and Weird Things Iceberg by Juan the Pickle. Go ahead and subscribe to this channel if you like my content. Part 2 will be coming soon. Go watch tier 1. There are 3 parts to tier 1, and we cover some other great unsolved mysteries and weird things. Hey, spooky people, this is your best friend, Kenny. Today we have part 2 of tier 2 of my Iceberg series on unsolved mysteries and weird things. Mandy the Haunted Doll. Mandy the Haunted Doll is a supposed real-life haunted doll residing in the Quesnel Museum in British Columbia, Canada. She is a local celebrity and attracts visitors curious about her spooky reputation. Mandy is an antique porcelain doll, estimated to be around 100 years old. She was donated to the museum in 1991 by a woman who claimed the doll was previously owned by her grandmother. Museum staff and visitors have reported strange occurrences around Mandy, such as hearing crying or whispering sounds near the doll, a sense of unease in her presence, seeing Mandy's eyes follow them, objects moving or being misplaced near Mandy's display case. Mandy has attracted some of those paranormal investigators who have visited Mandy and have recorded or claimed to have recorded EVPs or electronic voice phenomena and other evidence of paranormal activity around her. There are a few theories about why Mandy might be haunted. Some people believe Mandy is attached to her original owner and is unhappy being in a museum. Hey, I get it. Museums are cool to visit, but can you imagine having to stand in that box all day, looking at people, tapping on the glass? Probably real annoying. Others believe that the doll has absorbed negative energy or emotions from her past, which manifests as paranormal activity. If that were true, though, you think all of us would manifest as paranormal activity, or at least a lot of us, right? Some believe a spirit or entity has attached itself to the doll. Good news, if you're in British Columbia, Quesnel, British Columbia, you can go visit Mandy. So go say hi. The Stanford Prison Experiment. I think most people know about this. I think I had to read about this in high school. I don't know if that's like standard high school reading or it just happened to be my high school, but the Stanford Prison Experiment was a psychological study conducted in 1971 at Stanford University designed to investigate the psychological effects of perceived power, focusing on the struggle between prisoners and prison guards. 24 male college students were selected from a pool of volunteers and randomly assigned to be either guards or prisoners. A mock prison was created in the basement of Stanford Psychology Building with cells, a solitary confinement room, and other prison-like features. Guards were given uniforms, batons, and mirrored sunglasses to enhance their sense of authority and anonymity. Prisoners wore smocks with ID numbers and were referred to only by their numbers. The experiment was supposed to last 2 weeks, but was abruptly stopped after just 6 days due to the alarming behavior of the participants. The guards quickly became authoritarian and abusive, subjecting the prisoners to harassment, humiliation, and degrading tasks. They devised creative ways to assert their power and control, leading to psychological and emotional distress among the prisoners. The prisoners initially resisted the guards' authority, but soon became passive and submissive. Many exhibited signs of extreme stress, anxiety, and depression. Some even experienced emotional breakdowns. The Stanford Prison Experiment revealed the powerful influence of social roles and situational factors on human behavior. It established how quickly ordinary individuals could adopt and internalize harmful behaviors when placed in positions of power, even in a simulated environment. The experiment was widely criticized for its ethical implications, particularly the psychological harm inflicted on the prisoners. It raised questions about the researchers' responsibility to protect participants and the abuse of power in research settings. Despite the ethical problems, the Stanford Prison Experiment remains a significant study in social psychology. It has been widely discussed and analyzed, contributing to our understanding of social roles. It also established the dangers of unchecked authority and how power can corrupt and lead to abuse. The Battle of Los Angeles. Now, this isn't the Rage Against the Machine album. Might be showing my age with that one. Is Rage Against the Machine considered an oldie now? Are those oldies? I think they might be. Oof, that's tough. The Battle of Los Angeles, also known as the Great Los Angeles Air Raid, was an incident that occurred on the night of February 24th and 25th, 1942, just a few months after the U.S. entered World War II. It involved an alleged enemy attack on Los Angeles and the subsequent anti-aircraft artillery barrage that ensued. Military radar picked up on an unidentified object approaching Los Angeles from the west. Air raid sirens blared throughout the city and a blackout was ordered. Anti-aircraft batteries opened fire on the supposed target, filling the night sky with exploding shells and searchlights. Despite the intense barrage, no enemy planes were ever confirmed to be present. The incidents caused widespread confusion and fear, with many people in Los Angeles believing they were under attack by Japanese aircraft. However, the lack of evidence of any enemy planes led to speculation about what the military was actually firing at. The prevailing theory is the idea of war nerves or war anxiety, which may have manifested because of an overreaction in the tense atmosphere following the attack on Pearl Harbor. It also might have been a weather balloon. The initial radar contact may have been a weather balloon or other airborne object misidentified as an enemy aircraft. Others believe that the anti-aircraft fire may have been triggered by a friendly aircraft or even flares and shell bursts from other batteries. Of course, some people believe that it might have been a UFO. Personally, I like the UFO theory. Spontaneous human combustion. Spontaneous human combustion is the purported phenomenon of the human body catching fire and burning without any apparent external source of ignition. It's a concept that has captured the public imagination for centuries, appearing in literature and even scientific discussions. Reports of spontaneous human combustion often share common features. Localized burning. The body is often severely burned, particularly the torso, while the remaining environment may show minimal fire damage. Rapid combustion. The burning is said to be rapid and intense, sometimes reducing the body to ashes. Generally, there's no obvious external cause for the fire or ignition source, such as a lit cigarette or an open flame. There is usually a greasy or oily residue, sometimes found near the remains. Scientists generally dismiss spontaneous human combustion as a real thing. Most cases can be explained by more conventional causes, such as, a small or overlooked ignition source. Again, like a cigarette, a faulty electrical appliance, some sort of sparks that could have ignited whatever. The wick effect. The theory suggests that the body's fat can act as a fuel source while clothing and bedding acting as a wick. Once ignited, the body fat can slowly burn for an extended period, causing significant damage. And while not a direct cause of spontaneous human combustion, excessive alcohol consumption can make individuals more susceptible to accidents and less likely to escape a fire. Personally, I think the more reasonable explanations for spontaneous human combustion, that it's not actually spontaneous, that there just might be a source that people are overlooking. I think that's probably the right answer to this. But again, who knows? The zone of silence. The zone of silence, or La Zona del Silencio, is a desert region in the Mapimi Biosphere Reserve in Durango, Mexico, known for its strange magnetic anomalies and unusual occurrences. It's a place where radio signals are said to mysteriously vanish and compasses spin wildly, giving rise to numerous legends and theories about its nature. The zone of silence has a reputation for several unusual phenomena. Supposedly, radio waves cannot penetrate the zone, making communication in the area difficult or impossible. Compasses are said to spin erratically and unable to find true north. The area has experienced meteorites and the impact of meteorites, including the Allende meteorite, one of the largest. Unusual flora and fauna. Some reports mention mutations in plant and animal life within the area. There have been reports of strange lights, UFO sightings, and encounters with unusual beings. Not really clear on what type of unusual beings, if it's, Bigfoot and El Chupacabra, or if it's just some weird guy named, Zach. But science has attempted to explain the zone of silence, and there are a few theories, such as that there are magnetic anomalies in the area. Some scientists believe that unique magnetic properties interfere with the radio waves and compass readings. They believe that a high number of meteorite impacts could have altered the local geology and magnetic fields in the area. There's also a belief that atmospheric conditions, such as temperature inversions, could be affecting the radio waves in the area. Of course, the zone of silence has become a popular destination for tourists and researchers interested in the paranormal. Good news. If you want to go see this place, go ahead. You can go visit the zone of silence. Why don't you go visit the zone of silence and tell me how it is in the comments? I would love to hear about it. The Crooked Forest. The Crooked Forest is a grove of oddly shaped pine trees located near the town of Gryfino, West Pomerania in northwest Poland. The small forest, which consists of around 400 pine trees, is a fascinating natural anomaly that has puzzled scientists and visitors for decades. The trees in the Crooked Forest exhibit a peculiar J-shaped bend at their base, with the trunks curving sharply northward before turning upright again. This uniform curvature, along with the fact that all the trees bend in the same direction, creates a surreal and almost eerie landscape. The exact cause of the tree's unusual shape remains a mystery, but there have been several theories that have been proposed. The most popular theory suggests that local farmers manipulated the trees in the 1930s to create curved timber for furniture or boat building. Always humans. You can always expect humans to have messed some of this stuff up. They may have used tools or techniques to force the young trees to grow in this unusual shape. However, the specific method remains unknown. The outbreak of World War II may have interrupted their plans. Others speculate that heavy snowfall could have flattened the young trees, causing them to grow with a permanent bend. However, that doesn't explain why the other trees in the area remain straight. Some other theories include gravitational anomalies, a unique microclimate, or even a genetic mutation. The Crooked Forest is a protected natural monument in Poland, and it attracts tourists. So again, you can go visit the Crooked Forest. It's a popular destination for nature lovers and those who like weird things. And in this channel, we like weird things. So go visit the Crooked Forest and tell me about it. Okay? Probably a little safer than some of these other creepy places, right? The Wendigo is a terrifying creature from Algonquin folklore, prominent in the stories of tribes in the northern United States and Canada. It's a malevolent spirit associated with cannibalism, greed, winter, and starvation. The Wendigo is often depicted as gaunt and emaciated, associated with starvation. Its heart is made of ice, symbolizing its cold and heartless nature. Wendigos are believed to possess superhuman strength and speed, as well as the ability to mimic human voices to lure victims. Wendigos are said to have insatiable craving for human flesh, and the more they consume, the larger and hungrier they become. The Wendigo is seen as a cautionary tale against cannibalism, which is taboo in many Algonquin cultures, especially during harsh winters when food was scarce. Also taboo in most cultures. The Wendigo also symbolizes the dangers of greed, selfishness, and the pursuit of material wealth at the expense of others. The creature is associated with wintertime and the harshness of winter, a time of scarcity and isolation which can push people to their limits and reveal their true nature. In some Algonquin cultures, the term Wendigo psychosis refers to a condition where individuals develop an intense craving for human flesh even when other food is available. The condition was often attributed to possession by the Wendigo spirit. The Phoenix Lights. The Phoenix Lights were a series of strangely sighted, unidentified flying objects observed in the skies over Phoenix, Arizona, and other parts of southwestern United States on the evening of March 13th, 1997. The incident remains one of the most famous and well-documented UFO sightings in history. There were two separate events that evening. One involved a V-shaped formation of 5 lights in the sky seen moving slowly across the sky. Witnesses described it as enormous, silent, and spanning the width of a football field. Later in the evening, a series of stationary lights appeared in the sky, which formed a triangular pattern. Thousands of people, including residents, pilots, and even the governor of Arizona at the time, Fife Symington, that's a name, witnessed the lights. Many captured the events on video and photographs, providing visual evidence of what they saw. Despite a ton of analysis and investigations, the Phoenix Lights remain a source of debate and speculation. Some popular theories are military flares. The U.S. Air Force claimed that the second set of lights were flares dropped by an aircraft during a training exercise. However, this explanation doesn't account for the earlier V-shaped object. Aircraft formation. Some suggest that the V-shaped object could have been a formation of aircraft, possibly military or civilian. And of course, a lot of people like to believe that these were UFOs. The sheer number of witnesses and visual evidence makes the UFO theory pretty popular. Oh boy. Oumuamua. Oumuamua is the first interstellar object to visit our solar system. In 2017, this object came from interstellar space, meaning it originated from outside of our solar system and entered our solar system. It has a highly elongated cigar-like shape, unlike anything that had been previously observed in our solar system. It was estimated to be about 400 meters long and perhaps 40 meters wide. The Oumuamua exhibited non-gravitational acceleration, meaning it sped up slightly as it moved away from the sun. This acceleration couldn't be explained by the sun's gravity alone. Despite the acceleration, it didn't show any signs of cometary activity such as outgassing or a tail, which would typically explain such a speed boost. Now, some scientists believe the Oumuamua was a type of comet with unusual properties, perhaps composed of different materials than comets in our solar system. Others believe it might have been an asteroid or a piece of an asteroid that had broken apart after a collision. Others believe that it was perhaps either a UFO or some type of object sent by another civilization, such as a sail or a probe or a drone. I like the idea that it's just some sort of like drone that was sent over here by, aliens, and then they just sort of lost it and decided screw it. But Unfavorable Semicircle is a mysterious YouTube channel that appeared in 2015 and it vanished in 2017. It's an internet legend and contains bizarre content and cryptic messages, which we love. The channel uploaded tens of thousands of short videos, often at a rate of several uploads per minute. The videos typically featured abstract imagery, distorted audio, and snippets of text or code. Some videos were silent, while others contained unsettling sounds and distorted voices. The video titles usually had random numbers and symbols, including various zodiac symbols. After a little over a year of activity, the channel was deleted from YouTube. Nobody knows the purpose of this channel. And I mean, to be fair, there are a lot of YouTube channels that don't have any purpose, right? They're just people just making weird stuff and putting it on the internet. It's our bread and butter on the internet, right? Weird stuff on the internet. Others believe it was an elaborate alternate reality game with hidden clues and puzzles embedded in the videos. Some believe it was an art project, which, I think is probably a pretty reasonable explanation. And, there's always people that believe that the person who is uploading these videos had some sort of mental illness or was some sort of disturbed individual, and this was his way of communicating with the outside. In 2022, the supposed creator of Unfavorable Semicircle came out and said the channel was an art project. If you believe that, I think it makes sense. I think that's probably what most people on YouTube are doing. Most people making weird stuff on YouTube are generally doing it for the art. So I think that's probably a reasonable explanation. But, you don't have to believe it. Marble hornets. Remember Slender Man? Slender Man was great, right? Marble Hornets is a web series that sort of pioneered both the Slender Man phenomena and the found footage genre on YouTube. It was created by Troy Wagner and Joseph DeLage, It first appeared in 2009. It first appeared in 2009 and gained a cult following for, really the incredible visuals. This was an incredibly done series, and you should really go check it out. The series revolves around Jay, a young man who receives a box of videotapes from his friend Alex, a film student who abruptly abandoned his project called Marble Hornets. As Jay reviews the tapes, he discovers disturbing footage of Alex's increasingly erratic behavior and encounters with a mysterious faceless entity known as the Operator. It utilized the found footage format, which, we've all seen the Blair Witch Project and other types of found footage, but this did it very well, very effectively. It used cryptic storytelling. There were frequently messages and codes in the clips and puzzles to solve. And it also utilized Twitter and other social and YouTube and separate YouTube, accounts to create this storytelling where it was an alternate reality game, and that there was an actual in-game universe where these things occurred. This series is available on YouTube, and I recommend watching it. I watched it. I've watched it a few times. I did have the opportunity to watch it while it was still going on, but it was at like the tail end and when it had resolved itself. If you're a fan of spooky and weird things, you'll like Marble Hornets. Saturn's hexagon. Saturn's hexagon is an atmospheric phenomenon. It's a long-lasting hexagonal cloud pattern located around the north pole of the planet Saturn, making it one of the most recognizable and striking features in our solar system. The clouds are a nearly perfect hexagon shape with 6 almost equally sized sides and angles. Each side of the hexagon measures about 9,000 miles long, which is wider than the diameter of Earth. It's essentially a jet stream with winds reaching over 200 miles per hour. Yet it's incredibly stable, remaining in the same position and shape for decades, despite the turbulent nature of Saturn's atmosphere. Scientists are still researching what is this thing and why is it like that. They have a number of theories relating to dynamic fluids and atmospheric currents. Experiments have shown that when a fluid is rotated at different speeds, it can create polygonal shapes, including hexagons. So that's the current theory, is there's, atmospheric jet stream condition that is creating this shape. But, Saturn's far away and they're trying their best. Scientists are trying their best to study this type of stuff, but, they might not know. Ruth Price. Now, this is sort of an old school one. There was a chilling, this is an old school one. There is in 1988, a woman named Ruth Price called 911, reporting a strange man outside of her house. After a brief silence, she screamed before the line went dead.
This is Ruth Price at 3877. What's the problem, ma'am? Oh, there's some guy been checking the place out.
How?
Well, he went in the back. I have an apartment in the back, and he said he was looking for a guy. And he comes to my door, and
Yes?
and said he's looking for an apartment. So I live alone, and I'm an old lady.
Mm-hmm. Where is he now, ma'am?
I don't have no idea.
Now, this used to be, one of these creepy internet things that sort of went around. And it actually supposedly used to be a 911 training video of things not to do on 911. However, Now, the internet got a hold of the Ruth Price story, and it's believed that although the recording is real and she did scream, that she did not die in this occurrence, that a prowler was in the area. When she called 911, she was grabbed from behind and choked. She dropped the telephone, which caused, the line to cut out. But she was able to break the attacker's grip and ended up surviving. And no one knows who her attacker was or why that happened. But Ruth Price would later die of old age or something like that. Not in this occurrence, which makes the audio extremely less concerning. The Clockman. The Clockman is a piece of lost media, a famous piece of lost media that was aired on Nickelodeon in 1976. The actual title is About Dressy Sally, and it became an internet legend. It's about a young girl named Sally who loses her glove her mother gave her, and instead of telling the truth, she lies, and then things take a dark turn. A creepy wizard with a clock for a head appears from her clock and takes her to a surreal world to teach her a lesson about honesty. Someone posted in a web forum remembering parts of this video, and other people remembered it, and there became an internet lost media search to find this video because it was vivid in these people's minds. People who were watching Nickelodeon at the time were kids, and this thing sort of stuck with them because it was such an odd video. It's such a disturbing content. So there was a mass search in lost media circles, and many people thought it was either a hoax or just some sort of internet horror story. But in 2017, this video was discovered, and it turned out it was a pretty creepy video. So the people searching for this online talking about this creep video weren't making it up. Since it's been found, you could go and search for it and find it on YouTube. The Tunguska event. The Tunguska event was a massive explosion that occurred near the Podkamenia Tunguska River in Siberia, Russia. It happened in 1908 and was a powerful explosion. The explosion was estimated to be about 12 megatons and rocked the remote Siberian forest. The blast flattened an estimated 80 million trees over an area of 2,150 square kilometers, which is like 830 square meters. The explosion caused shockwaves that were felt all around the world and produced glowing skies across Eurasia for several nights. However, there was no crater found. The most widely accepted explanation is that this event was caused by a meteor or asteroid that entered the Earth's atmosphere and exploded at an altitude of about 3 to 6 miles, and the airburst caused the widespread damage. Other scientists suggest that the object could have been a comet, which would have vaporized more completely upon entering the atmosphere, leaving less evidence. Other beliefs are, of course, natural gas explosion, a black hole collision, or aliens. I think the meteor explanation sort of is probably the best, or whatever, some sort of space object crashing into it probably makes the most sense. But, let's get weird with it, right? The Crying Boy refers to a mass-produced print of a painting by the Italian artist Giovanni Bregolin that became infamous in the 1980s due to an urban legend. This painting was mass-produced with various versions depicting tearful young boys and girls. The prints were widely popular in the 1950s. Why that would be popular, I have no idea, and it became a common sight across homes in Europe. There was a series of fires in the UK in the 1980s, And newspapers reported that firefighters often found prints of this crying boy / crying girl in the fire debris. This led to people believing that the paintings were cursed and were somehow causing the fires. The Sun newspaper, which is a terrible newspaper, fueled the legend with headlines like "The Blazing Curse of the Crying Boy." This in turn caused mass panic. With some people being afraid of owning the prints, some people held mass bonfires to destroy them. A good old art burning. So while the curse is likely BS, there's been some explanations. First, that since the prints were cheaply made, that the painting may have been mass produced in materials that couldn't burn. Other people point to confirmation bias, being that people are more likely to report cases where the print survived, because who would know if the print didn't survive, right? If the print was destroyed, no one would have known. Cindy Song. Cindy Song was a 21-year-old Penn State University student who mysteriously disappeared from State College, Pennsylvania on November 1st, 2001, after a Halloween night with her friends. Her case remains unsolved, and no one knows what happened to her. Cindy was an art major at Penn State. She was born and raised in South Korea and later moved to Virginia to live with her aunt and uncle. On Halloween night, Cindy went to a bar with friends dressed in a bunny costume. She was last seen being dropped off at her apartment complex at 4 a.m. Cindy never entered her apartment, and her belongings, including her purse and Halloween costume, were later found scattered near a local creek. Despite extensive searches and investigations, Cindy's disappearance remains a mystery. Several leads and persons of interest have been explored, but no concrete evidence has ever emerged. There were reported sightings of Cindy's in the days following her disappearance, but none of them have been confirmed. Now, a convicted murderer named Hugo Selinski was investigated as a possible suspect, but no direct link was established and he was never charged. So, with all of these missing people cases, the question is, well, what happened to her? Well, she either disappeared on purpose, right? Decided to leave. Someone, was involved. There was foul play, or there was an accident, right? I know that's an oversimplification of things. People want to know, well, who did it and why, or what happened and why. And, that those type of questions continue to haunt her family and, people who are interested in the case. The Mary Celeste. The Mary Celeste is one of the most popular maritime mysteries of all time. This ship was found adrift and deserted in the Atlantic Ocean in 1872 with no sign of struggle or any indication of why its crew vanished. On December 4th, 1872, a British ship encountered the Mary Celeste sailing erratically about 400 miles east of the Azores. Upon boarding, the crew found that the Mary Celeste in seaworthy condition with its cargo intact and personal belongings of the crew still in place. However, there was no sign of the captain, his wife, their young daughter, and the 7 crew members. The last entry in the ship's log was dated 10 days earlier, when the Mary Celeste was near the Azores. The disappearance of the crew and captain have baffled investigators and historians. There was no indication of piracy or foul play or a storm or any other reason for the crew to abandon ship. There are theories, right? First theory, pirates, although there's no real evidence of any pirates being involved because there was no violence. So maybe these were really nice, polite pirates. Possible, unlikely, but possible. It's also possible that a mutiny occurred, although again, there was no sign of a struggle. So, and the crew's valuables were all left behind. So that doesn't really jive. Another theory suggests that fumes from leaking alcohol in the cargo caused an explosion or a fear of an explosion, which led the crew to abandon ship. Some believe that a sudden and violent water spout occurred and could have caused the damage or fear of an imminent danger, causing the crew to evacuate the ship. And still others want to believe that this was paranormal activity, such as some sort of a sea monster or alien abduction. I think we should blame Cthulhu. I think Cthulhu did it. Well, we shouldn't blame Cthulhu, because that will make him angry. So we should just acknowledge that this was probably Cthulhu. The Roanoke Colony. The Roanoke Colony was established in 1587 on Roanoke Island in present-day North Carolina and was one of the first attempts at an English settlement in the Americas. It's known as the Lost Colony because of the mysterious disappearance of its colonists, leaving behind only cryptic clues. Roanoke was first founded in 1585, but this founding was short-lived due to conflicts with the natives and a lack of supplies. In 1587, John White led a second group of colonialists, including his daughter and her husband. However, they were facing dwindling supplies. White returned to England to get more supplies, leaving behind 115 people. Due to the Anglo-Spanish War, White was delayed and couldn't return to Roanoke until 1590. When White did return, the colony was abandoned. There was no signs of violence or struggle, and the houses had been dismantled. The word Croatoan was the only clue, carved into a post, and the letters CRO were carved into a nearby tree. No one has ever solved the disappearances or what happened at the Roanoke Colony. Now, the current most prevalent theory is that the colonists sought refuge with friendly natives, the Croatan tribe, and some people suggest that they integrated with the tribe. Others suggest that they were perhaps killed by other natives. Some believe that there may have been disease or famine, which just wiped out the colonists, and others passed due to starvation. And some other people believe that the colonists decided to head back to England and got lost at sea, which that would probably be the worst. Though living in the 1500s like that, I'm sure you just have no idea what's going on and everything's scary and you think everything is a monster. So it sounds like a bad time. I would not have wanted to be, someone who's heading to the New World. I would not have wanted to be one of those colonists heading to this area. It seems scary. The 2001 anthrax attacks. Man, 2001 was a wild time, wasn't it? Absolutely wild time with all sorts of stuff going on. Anyway, just weeks after the September 11th attacks, bioterrorist attacks began occurring where someone sent letters containing anthrax spores to various news media offices and 2 U.S. senators, which resulted in 22 anthrax infections and 5 deaths. These attacks caused widespread fear and disruption. And the ensuing investigation was one of the largest and most complex in U.S. history. And yet, they never found who was responsible. On September 18th, 2001, the first anthrax-laced letters were mailed from Trenton, New Jersey. On October 4th, 2001, Robert Stevens, a photo editor at the Sun tabloid in Florida, became the first person to die from inhalation anthrax. On October 9th, 2001, letters containing anthrax were sent to offices of NBC News in New York and the New York Post. On October 12th, 2001, a letter containing anthrax was addressed to Senator Tom Daschle. On October 15th, 2001, a letter containing anthrax was addressed to Senator Patrick Leahy of Vermont. The attacks stopped in November 2001. The FBI, along with other law enforcement agencies, launched a massive investigation codenamed Amerithax. Nice job on the name, guys. In order to find out who was responsible. In 2008, the FBI concluded that Bruce Ivins, a scientist who worked at the U.S. Army Medical Research Institute of Infectious Diseases, was the sole perpetrator of the attacks. However, the FBI's conclusion remains controversial, and many experts do not believe Ivins was responsible. He believes that Ivins was a convenient target. I suppose it's important to remember that at this time, there was a whole lot going on after the September 11th attacks. There was a DC sniper. There was all this crazy stuff sort of going on. And so everybody was so freaked out by this type of stuff. So obviously this created massive amounts of fear in the public, increased security everywhere, especially as it related to the mail facilities and governmental buildings. And this also helped people, essentially develop ways to detect and respond to bioterrorism attacks, which is probably a silver lining to this cloud, right? The Black Aggie statue. The Black Aggie statue is a bronze sculpture shrouded in spooky lore and local legend. It resided in the Druid Ridge Cemetery in Pikesville, Maryland. Ooh, Druids. But now rests in a courtyard behind the Dolly Madison House in Washington, D.C. The Black Aggie is actually an unauthorized replica of the Grief statue, a famous work by Augustus St. Gaudens located in the Rock Creek Cemetery in Washington, D.C. The Black Aggie was created by Edward Ludwig Albert Pausch and was placed on the grave of General Felix Angus in the Druid Ridge Cemetery. Over time, the Black Aggie became associated with various spooky tales and superstitions. People claim that its eyes grow red at night. People claim that sitting in the Black Aggie's lap at midnight would cause death or blindness. People also claim that she is a meeting place for witches and Satanists. Probably because people claim that. People said the witches and Satanists say, oh yeah, we should go meet at this place. This might be a good place to meet. This is probably one of those situations where it's a confirmation bias. People just sort of think weird things happen because of this thing. And then therefore, when something happens, they attribute the weird thing to this thing, right? The statue was eventually donated to the Smithsonian, where it was moved to its current, less conspicuous location. The Dancing Plague of 1518. The Dancing Plague of 1518 was a social phenomenon that occurred in modern-day France. And it involved hundreds of people dancing uncontrollably for days, even weeks on end. And yeah, this was way before TikTok. This was like 500 some years. 500 some years before TikTok. This wasn't a joyous, happy dancing celebration. It was a deadly dance mania that led to exhaustion, strokes, heart attacks, and even death. In July 1518, a woman, Frau Troffia, began dancing fervently in the street. Within days, others joined her. Imagine dancing for days by yourself until people start joining you, by the way. They were seemingly unable to stop their frenzied movements. Initially, authorities believed encouraging the dancing would help people dance off the affliction, right? They even hired musicians and built the stage. So, hey, yeah, all these people are dancing. We'll just get some musicians set up. However, the dancing continued for weeks. By September 1518, the mania began to subside, leaving behind a trail of exhaustion and death. The exact cause of the dancing plague remains a mystery, but several theories have been proposed. Stress-induced mass hysteria. Historian John Waller suggests that the plague was a form of mass psychogenic illness triggered by extreme stress and hardship. They were facing famine, disease, and social unrest at the time. Another theory is ergotism. The dancers were suffering from ergotism, a condition caused by consuming ergot-contaminated rye bread. Now you got to look at your rye bread. Otherwise, you're just going to start dancing, right? Ergot contains a psychoactive substance that can cause hallucinations and convulsions. Some historians believe the dancing was a form of religious ecstasy or a misguided attempt to please Saint Vitus, a saint believed to have the power to inflict a dancing curse. So there you go. I don't know what to tell you about this one. Like I said, TikTok wasn't around, so if you're not getting clicks for your dancing for weeks and months, I don't know why you would even bother. The Tuskegee Syphilis Study. The Tuskegee Syphilis Study is a dark chapter in American medical history. It was an unethical clinical study conducted by the U.S. Public Health Service between 1932 and 1972 in Macon County, Alabama. The study aimed to observe the natural progression of untreated syphilis in black men. 600 participants, all impoverished sharecroppers and African American men, were never told that they had syphilis. They were told that they were being treated for bad blood. Even when penicillin became the standard treatment for syphilis in the 1940s, the men were denied access to it. Researchers wanted to continue observing the disease's progression, even though it led to severe health complications and deaths for many participants. The study was riddled with ethical violations, including a lack of informed consent, deception and withholding of information, denial of effective treatment, and exploiting a vulnerable population. In 1972, finally in 1972, the study was exposed by a whistleblower, leading to public outrage and condemnation. Then they stopped the study after it was exposed. So they kept going, doing this until finally someone said, hey, this thing's going on. They're like, oh, whoops, stop. In 1997, President Bill Clinton formally apologized for the study, acknowledging the government's role in this injustice. That's terrible. Like what an awful thing. What an awful history. What an awful chapter of our history, of this country's history. Cattle mutilation. Cattle mutilation is a phenomenon where livestock, primarily cattle, often experience horrific deaths with unusual and disturbing mutilations. There's usually a lack of evidence, a lack of clear cause of these deaths, which lead to a lot of various theories. Sometimes there are surgically precise cuts. Frequently, the carcasses are often found drained of their blood or no sign of blood splatter or pools in the surrounded area. There are missing organs, and generally no footprints or tracks of what might have caused it, so people don't believe it was an animal. Some people believe that there's paranormal explanations. Some people believe that these are aliens that are involved. But this is a type of phenomenon that just sort of occurs. And it's a pretty deep internet rabbit hole if you want to go down that path, because lots of people have lots of theories about this thing. Kate Yupp. Kate Yupp is a wild one. Kate Yupp is a YouTuber that was known for uploading mukbang videos. If you don't know what a mukbang is, it's not a dirty thing. A mukbang is where people basically eat just a whole bunch of food, just eat this food, and there's usually a microphone so you could hear them chewing and the chewing noises that they make, and they just eat a whole bunch of food on camera, and sometimes they talk, sometimes they don't. Kate used to eat massive amounts of seafood. Just absolutely crazy. She was a thinner woman. I'll have some video footage here. What was interesting is the internet sort of ran wild with Kate Yupp, and people believe that she may have been held against her will, was being forced to make these videos against her will, and people started finding secret messages in these videos. Now, the prevailing theory is that once Kate Yupp found out that people had these theories and claimed they were finding these messages in these videos, just started putting these messages in the videos to sort of troll or gain publicity. And I think that's a pretty reasonable explanation, probably a pretty likely explanation. You know, people would observe these videos. They would see that she did not show her face in these videos. She sometimes had bruises or marks on her hand. People believe that she was abducted, and, you know, this sort of became a whole thing until the channel just went away. And there's never been an official explanation for it, but I think the most, you know, realistic theory is this was just a YouTuber who made this certain type of content, which was popular at the time, and saw that she had this way to sort of get more attention by, you know, pretending to be kidnapped. So she did. Blanche Monnier. Blanche Monnier was a French woman who was secretly kept in a small room by her own mother and brother for 25 years. Here's what we know about her life. Blanche was born in 1849 to an aristocratic family in France. She was known for her beauty and had many suitors. Ooh. In 1876, at the age of 27, Blanche wanted to marry a lawyer whom her mother disapproved of. Smart mom. Don't let your kids marry lawyers. However, her mother, angered by her defiance, locked Blanche in a tiny dark attic room. In 1901, police received an anonymous letter about Blanche's confinement. They found her in a horrific state. She was emaciated. She was surrounded by her own waste. She had not seen sunlight for 25 years. Blanche's mother was arrested but died shortly after. Her brother was convicted but later released. Blanche was admitted to a psychiatric hospital where she lived for the rest of her life, died in 1913. This is a pretty heartbreaking story. You know, people, whenever I see stories about parents and family members abusing family members, you know, these are vulnerable people who, you know, are being hurt by the people they love. And that's terrible. And this story is a very, very extreme version of that. But those type of things, people trusting people and loving people and letting those people and having those people hurt them, happens too often in this world. Ella Harper. Ella Harper was often known as the Camel Girl. No, not for Camel cigarettes. She was a famous American sideshow performer in the late 19th century. She had a rare orthopedic condition that caused her knees to bend backward. That just sounds painful. And this made it more comfortable for her to walk on all fours. She joined the circus in 1886, where her unusual way of walking and stage presence made her a star attraction. A promotional card from that time features a picture of her walking on her hands and feet with the caption, "I am called the Camel Girl because my knees turn backward." Very straight and to the point caption right there. Despite her fame, she decided to leave show business in 1886 to pursue an education and a more conventional life. She reportedly earned a good income in the circus, which allowed her to retire comfortably in her late teens, which, damn, if I would have known that, I would have joined the circus, right? She got married. She had a daughter who sadly passed in infancy, and she would pass away in 1921 at the age of 51. Joseph Merrick, the Elephant Man. Joseph Merrick was the Elephant Man. He was born in Leicester, England, a seemingly healthy baby. However, around 5, he began to develop abnormal growths on his skin, bone, and tissues. These deformities progressively worsened throughout his life. The exact cause of Merrick's condition remains a mystery, but it was once believed to have been Proteus syndrome. It's now believed to be a combination of Proteus syndrome and neurofibromatosis type 1. Most people have seen what Merrick looked like. And it was quite shocking appearance. He faced mean people. He lived a difficult life because of his deformities. He generally became a circus sideshow to earn a living, where he was exploited and dehumanized. He would later live at a hospital for the remainder of his life, where he became a type of celebrity. And his writings are pretty sad. You know, he really just wanted to sort of be loved and treated with respect, and people didn't. He would die in 1890 at the age of 27. People believe that he died from asphyxia caused by the weight of his head as he tried to sleep lying down. There's a lot of stuff online about the Elephant Man, and, you know, really, like I said, really it's a sad story. It's, you know, the pictures are sort of shocking and sort of fascinating, and it's fascinating to look at, you know, his skeleton. You know, there's a story of Michael Jackson buying a skeleton, and Michael Jackson feeling a connection, you know, with Joseph Merrick, with the Elephant Man. But it's really just sort of one of those heartbreaking stories. Amy Lynn Bradley. Amy Lynn Bradley was a 23-year-old American woman who mysteriously disappeared from a Royal Caribbean cruise ship in March of 1998. Her case remains unsolved, and it remains a popular unsolved mystery online. Amy was a recent college graduate from Virginia who was on a family cruise with her parents and brother in the Caribbean. She was described as athletic, outgoing, and she was loved. On March 24th, 1998, while the ship was sailing, she vanished. She was last seen on a balcony of her cabin with her brother Brad around 1 a.m. Despite an extensive search of the ship and surrounding waters, no trace of her was ever found. Over the years, there have been numerous alleged sightings of Amy in the Caribbean islands, some claiming she was seen in bars or sex trafficked. However, none of these sightings have been confirmed. You know, one of the theories, obviously, because it's a cruise ship, is that she had fallen overboard. Some people argue that it's unlikely because of her athleticism and lack of any evidence of that occurring. But again, 1 a.m. in the middle of the ocean, you know, you can be really athletic and you end up falling in the ocean, and, you know, it doesn't really matter how athletic you are. Other people believe that she was abducted from the ship which is, kind of tough because, if someone's abducted, how do they get away, right? Finally, there's another theory that she just sort of disappeared on purpose and again, just sort of sought to leave the ship. But again, where would she have gone, right? It's not like people saw like a ship pull up and her hop off. So this is still an active case that's actively being investigated by the FBI. That is the end of part 2 of tier 2 of the Unsolved Mysteries and Weird Things Iceberg. If you like my content, please subscribe. Please like, subscribe, share this video. Hey, spooky people, it's your best friend Kenny here. And we have another entry in the Unsolved Mysteries and Weird Things Iceberg by Juan the Pickle. This is part 3 of tier 2 of this Iceberg series. All right, everybody, let's get spooky. The Axeman of New Orleans. The Axeman of New Orleans was an unidentified American serial killer active in New Orleans, Louisiana from May 1918 to October 1919. The key characteristics of the Axeman's crimes are, as his name suggests, he primarily used an axe, and that axe often belonged to the victims themselves. The Axeman would typically gain entry to homes by chiseling out a panel on the back door. Many of the victims were Italian immigrants or Italian Americans, which leads to speculation that the killer's motives were racism. And the crimes were not motivated by robbery, as the Axeman didn't steal anything from the victims' homes. The Axeman's actions were often brutal and seemingly random, adding to the public's fear and confusion. In March 1919, a letter that has been attributed to the Axeman was published in local newspapers. It's kind of crazy that they used to just sort of publish these criminals' letters in newspapers. Like, we used to give these people a platform. Oh, yeah, he's a serial killer. Let's publish his letter in the newspaper, right? I guess now we got Twitter, right? Facebook. I think most serial killers are probably on Facebook. Anyway, March 1999, a letter that he wrote was published in local newspapers. He claimed to be a supernatural entity and offered to spare the lives of those who played jazz music in their homes. This led to jazz clubs being filled and many residents playing jazz records loudly in their homes. Maybe this was all just like a viral marketing technique for jazz. The Axeman abruptly stopped killing people in late 1919, and the killer was never identified. And these murders remain unsolved to this day. The Lake Champlain Monster. Champy. The Lake Champlain Monster, or Champy, as he's affectionately known, is the legendary lake monster that is said to inhabit Lake Champlain. This is a large body of freshwater lake nestled between New York and Vermont. And tales of this creature have been around for centuries. Here's what we know about Champy. Champy is often depicted as a serpentine creature with a long neck and humps protruding from the water. Some people have described it having a horse-like head or even flippers. Sounds like a cousin of the Loch Ness Monster. The size of Champy is said to be anywhere between 10 and 200 feet long. It's pretty big. Pretty big size discrepancy. The native and indigenous people in the area had legends of a giant lake serpent that they referred to as Gedeskog, while Samuel de Champlain, the lake's namesake, is often credited with the first European sighting in 1609. There have been hundreds of reported sightings of Champy over the years, with some even capturing blurry photos and videos. The most famous being the Mansi photograph taken in 1977. While many believe Champy to be a real creature, possibly a dinosaur or some other known species, skeptics think that it might be a large sturgeon, floating logs, or unusual wave formations that could be mistaken for a monster. Look, I want to believe in Champy. All right. I want Champy to be real. Regardless, both the state of New York and the state of Vermont have officially declared Champy to be a protected species. So you can't go out there and hunt Champy. That's why there's no Champy hunting shows. Like, I wonder why no one has made Bigfoot a protected species. It's a good question. Not really fair to old Bigfoot, is it? The Baltic Sea anomaly. The Baltic Sea anomaly, a 200-foot diameter circular object discovered on the floor of the northern Baltic Sea in 2011. Its unusual features have given it the reputation as being a sunken UFO. However, the most widely accepted explanation is that it's just a natural geological formation. The Baltic Sea anomaly was discovered by a diving team while they were treasure hunting in the Baltic Sea. So I guess they found a pretty incredible treasure if this is in fact a UFO, right? It's at the center of the Gulf of Bothnia, approximately 300 feet below the surface. Some believe that it appears to be a man-made or other entity-made object. The scientific consensus is that it's most likely a natural geological formation, possibly a glacial erratic or volcanic rock formation. See, personally, I want it to be a sunken UFO, but I don't think it is. I don't think that this is a sunken UFO. I bet it's just a big old rock. There's another theory that it's like some sort of remnant of some sort of either ancient or lost civilization. That might be cool too, if it's some sort of lost civilization, artifact. But it looks like the scientific analysis has shown that geological surveys and rock samples from the site suggest that the object is composed of minerals commonly found in the region. So unlikely, despite the fact that we want this bad boy to be a UFO, unlikely. But maybe. The multiverse theory. I think most people know about the multiverse theory just thanks to the whole Marvel thing. But most people might not know that this is a broader theory and not just limited to Marvel, the Marvel universe. But, the idea is our universe might not be the only one. And instead, there could be an infinite number of universes existing alongside ours. These universes, the multiverse, could have different physical laws, different constants, and even different dimensions. Some people fantasize that the laws of physics that govern our universe, like gravity, might be different in other universes. And fundamental constants like the speed of light or the gravitational constant could have different values in different universes. I feel like this type of theory is very fun to think about. And maybe it might be true, right? We don't know. But it's also the type of thing that just sort of like the deeper you go into it, the more it sort of like plays with your mind and kind of blows your mind. This idea that, there's always like the idea that, you exist, that you exist in all these different other universes. And every time you make a choice, the opposite choice becomes, there's these branches off into these other universes and stuff like that. And you know what? Like I I don't really necessarily have, strong opinions that this is like true. I'm not arguing with people that this is real, but I also, I'm open to it. I don't really see a problem with thinking about that. It's at least a fun intellectual exercise at best. And what else are we here for other than intellectual exercise, right? The Jim twins. The Jim twins are a famous case study in the field of twins research. Jim Springer and Jim Lewis were identical twins separated at 4 weeks old and raised by different adoptive families. They were reunited at age 39 in 1979, and their story became a fascinating example of the influence of genetics on personality, preferences, and life choices. Despite growing up in different environments, the Jim twins shared an incredible number of similarities. Both were named James by their adoptive parents. Both married women named Linda, then got divorced and remarried women named Betty. That's pretty weird. Both had sons, one named James Allen with 2 L's and the other named James Allen with 1 L. Both had dogs named Toy. Both had similar habits like chain smoking, nail biting, and enjoying carpentry. But who doesn't enjoy carpentry? Their case caught the attention of Dr. Thomas Bouchard of the University of Minnesota, who conducted extensive research on twins separated at birth. The Jim twins participated in this study and underwent numerous tests and interviews. This sort of is a life example of the nature versus nurture debate, right? Despite being raised apart, it suggested that there's a strong genetic component to personality and life choices. Ted's caving page. This is an old school one for, a lot of you people who have been chronically online for a long time, but Ted's caving page refers to a classic piece of internet horror fiction that originated in the early 2000s. It's one of the earliest examples of creepypasta, which is internet slang for horror stories that are copied and pasted around online forums and websites. The story is presented as a series of blog posts written by a man named Ted who explores a mysterious cave with his friends. As they venture deeper, they encounter strange phenomena and unsettling discoveries, and the blog entries become increasingly more disturbed. The story is told through text entries, photos, and diagrams. And the writing style is simple and amateurish, which adds the authenticity of the writing and makes it more creepy. Ted's caving page was originally posted on Angel Fire. Remember Angel Fire? Damn. It quickly became popular. It spread across online forums and communities and social media. And I know a lot of people now sort of look back at these old stories with nostalgia. You can look up online on YouTube and find, readings of the original Ted's caving page. You can also find sort of like modern takes on Ted's caving page or other ways of doing Ted's caving page or Ted the Caver. It was a very influential work, and I'm not sure that we really know who wrote it, which is sort of wild. Someone wrote this thing in the early internet, probably in their basement, and it became legendary. And, we don't know who the author was. So it's worth checking out. If, if you like internet horror or you have like sort of nostalgic for creepy old internet stuff. The Hat Man. The Hat Man is a shadowy figure who often occurs in sleep paralysis experiences. He's depicted as a tall, dark silhouetted man with a wide-brimmed hat obscuring his face. sometimes with a long coat. The Hat Man, or, the man in the black hat, as he's generally referred to, is also sort of a thing with people who abuse Benadryl. They often claim that, if you take a whole bunch of Benadryl, that you see the Hat Man. He's also associated with sleep paralysis. Some believe he's a type of shadow person. Some believe he's some sort of paranormal entity. Or just some sort of mutual hallucination. One thing that's interesting about the Benadryl theory, though, is there are a lot of people who abuse Benadryl. And yeah, people do abuse Benadryl. But I mean, people abuse anything, right? But there are a lot of people who abuse Benadryl who claim they have seen the Hat Man. And you go in some of these more disturbed internet forums and they'll talk about, oh yeah, the Hat Man came to visit me, and everyone sort of describes them in their own way. And, the question is, well, what came first? The Hat Man or the idea of the Hat Man getting in people's heads and then seeing the Hat Man? What is sort of interesting is, there are visions and sightings of the Hat Man across a lot of different cultures in various different cultures' folklore. So, this type of individual, this Hat Man, this dark Hat Man, is something that pops up in a lot of different places. So that sort of gives credence to this idea that, this paranormal figure or this shared hallucination is tied to something more than just word of mouth. Shadow people. Similar to the Hat Man, shadow people are also a phenomenon that's been reported in many cultures throughout history. Again, a dark, shadowy figure that is seen either in peripheral vision or altered states of consciousness, perhaps at night during sleep paralysis. They appear as human-shaped silhouettes, though at times they're described as having glowing red eyes. They move quickly and erratically across the edge of vision and disappearing when directly seen, or, your eyes are directly when your eyes are directly on them. This sort of reminds me of, how every once in a while you'll see something in your periphery and you think it's someone, or you think it's a person or creature. And then you look and there's nothing there. That's sort of what this sort of idea is, at least to me. And then it sort of seems like the idea of shadow people gives it sort of a name. I think that, there's a lot of different explanations for what this could be, right? It could just be weird lighting, optical illusions created by, reflections in glass or mirrors or, appliances or whatever, and then people who are just sort of like anxious, you tend to see stuff when you're anxious or tired. And then people with other sorts of, mental health conditions can also sort of see things that could be interpreted as shadow people. So, I don't really believe in the concept of like an actual entity known as the shadow people. But I do believe that there are a lot of people who see sort of shadow entities and then sort of prescribe this sort of paranormal occurrence to them. Though it's probably just seeing things. Frano Selic. Frano Selic was a Croatian music teacher who became famous for an incredible string of near-death experiences and then winning the lottery. Hey! Selic claimed to have cheated death at least 7 different times between 1962 and 1996. It's kind of like those Final Destination movies. I don't know if I'm dating myself with those, but 1962, a train derailed and plunged into an icy river, killing 17 passengers. And Selleck was on that train and only suffered a broken arm and hypothermia. In 1963, he was sucked out of a plane's malfunctioning door and landed in a haystack while the plane crashed, killing 19 people. In 1966, a bus he was on skidded off the road and into a river, which killed 4 passengers. Selleck swam to safety. 1970, his car caught fire while he was driving, and he managed to escape before the fuel tank exploded. 1973, another car fire caused flames to shoot through his air vents, singeing his hair. Ooh. 1995, he was hit by a bus, but only sustained minor injuries. In 1996, he drove off a cliff to avoid a head-on collision with a United Nations truck. He managed to jump out of the car and grab a tree, watching as his car plummeted 300 feet into a ravine. Then, in 2003, he won the lottery. He won approximately $1 million in the Croatian lottery. And he turned out to be incredibly lucky after all that unluckiness. Now, I got to tell you, man, this guy needs to just sort of avoid traveling. What? You got train crash, plane crash, multiple car problems. Stay home, dude. Stay home. Anyway, he died in 2016 at the age of 87. So basically made it to old age, right? Now, a lot of people think he's embellishing a lot of these stories, but I think it would be pretty easy to sort of put together, okay, did this plane crash happen? You know, some of the other stuff may be less easy. You know, the train crashes should also be documented too, but maybe the car stuff embellished a little bit. But like I said, he should just avoid travel. And if you saw that guy on a plane, get off the plane, right? The fly geyser. The fly geyser, pretty fly for a geyser. No. The fly geyser is a colorful geothermal geyser located on a private island in Nevada. It's often described as otherworldly due to its vibrant hues and unusual formations. In 1916, a well was drilled for the site, but the water was too hot for irrigation. The well was abandoned, and a calcium carbonate cone found over time, creating the geyser. I didn't even know that's how geysers were created until I did this research. So, the fly geyser consists of multiple cones constantly erupting water. The thermophilic algae that thrive in this hot water create a stunning array of colors ranging from green and red to orange and yellow. It's located on Fly Ranch, a 3,800-acre property in northern Nevada, which is about 20 miles north of Gerlach, Nevada. The ranch was purchased by the Burning Man Project in 2016. And the Burning Man Project offers limited public access through a guided nature walk. And you must book a tour in advance to see the geyser up close. I would imagine the geyser is probably pretty popular among the Burning Man people. The Burning Man Project is committed to protecting this land so that it's in good hands, so nothing bad is going to happen to it. Sigurd the Mighty. Sigurd the Mighty was a powerful Viking earl who ruled over Orkney and parts of northern Scotland in the 9th century. He's a prominent figure in Norse sagas, known for his conquests, his ruthlessness, and his rather unusual death. Sigurd would lead Viking raids and expanded his territory to include parts of mainland Scotland, conquering Caithness in Sutherland. He was often called the Mighty, and he was known for his ambition and his willingness to use any means necessary to achieve his goals. he died an unusual death. He fought a battle against a Scottish chieftain named Brigd. Sigel won the battle through treachery, bringing 80 men to a 40-on-40 fight. Oh, what an asshole. What a jackass. After he killed his opponent, Sigurd tied the severed head to his saddle as a trophy. But the head's buck teeth scratched Sigurd's leg during the ride and caused a wound that would become infected. The infection spread and led to his death. You know what they say, like, you know, a human bite is actually worse for you than like a dog bite. And that's like nowadays. Like, could you imagine how bad like people's oral hygiene was, you know, in the 900s or the Viking times? Oh man, I bet it was terrible. It was probably disgusting. People's breath was probably horrifying. Dark energy. Dark energy is a mysterious and pervasive force that constitutes about 68% of the total energy density in the universe. It's one of the biggest mysteries in modern cosmology, and its existence has been observed during the accelerating expansion of the universe. Here's what we know, or what we think we know, about dark energy. In the late 1990s, astronomers made the startling discovery that the expansion of the universe isn't slowing down as expected due to gravity. Instead, it's speeding up. This acceleration is attributed to dark energy. Observations of distant supernovae, or exploding stars, have provided primary evidence for dark energy. These exploding stars appear dimmer than expected, suggesting they are farther away than they should be if the universe were expanding at a constant rate. The cosmic microwave background, the afterglow of the Big Bang, also provides evidence for dark energy. Its pattern suggests the presence of a force counteracting gravity. Ooh, see, that's spooky. It's like a level of spooky that we don't really talk about, like just sort of like the whatever is out there, right? Unlike gravity, which pulls things together, dark energy acts as a repulsive force, pushing things apart. Kind of like Pickles. Pickles push things apart. Dark energy appears to be evenly distributed throughout space. The density of dark energy appears to remain constant even as the universe expands, which is unusual for normal matter and energy. The leading theory is that dark energy is a property of space itself, represented by Einstein's cosmological constant. This constant energy density would permeate space and drive the acceleration. Another theory is that dark energy is a dynamic field called quintessence, which could vary in strength over time and space. Other theories suggest that our understanding of gravity is incomplete, and modifications to Einstein's general relativity could explain the accelerating expansion without the need for dark energy. Scientists haven't directly detected dark energy, making it difficult to actually study it. So the nature of dark energy is a theoretical challenge, and scientists are working to develop models that can explain its observed effects. Upcoming space telescopes and surveys, such as the Euclid mission and the Vera C. Rubin Observatory, are designed to provide a more precise measurements of the universe's expansion and help unravel the mystery of dark energy. Ooh. Again, it's just sort of wild to think, you know, we're these just like, we're not even specks, you know, we're these little tiny microscopic things floating around on rocks. And there's all this other stuff out there, right? kind of like an existential spookiness. Dark flow. Dark flow is a controversial theory in astrophysics that attempts to explain the motion of galaxy clusters. Some studies have suggested that a large group of galaxy clusters are moving in a roughly uniform direction at very high speeds, flowing towards something. This collective motion is called dark flow. Suggests that these clusters are being pulled together towards a specific region of space outside our observable universe. Dark flow involves the movement of hundreds of galaxy clusters over vast distances. The flow appears to be directed towards a region in the southern constellations of Centaurus and Hydra. Whether dark flow even exists is heavily debated in the scientific community, with some studies supporting it and others finding no evidence for it. If dark flow is real, it means that the existence of massive structures beyond the universe that we can observe are gravitationally influencing the motion of these clusters. It could be the remains of structures or forces that existed in the very early universe before the inflation of the universe smoothed out the distribution of matter. Skeptic scientists argue that the observed dark flow could just be systematic errors in the data or analysis methods used in the studies. If dark flow is real, it could challenge our current understanding of cosmology, the distribution of matter in the universe, and astrophysics in general. Now, these last two subjects, dark matter and dark energy, I'm not a scientist. I'm not a physicist. I'm not qualified to really discuss this. I did some research on it, and I was able to, be somewhat conversant in what I learned for this video. If you're interested in dark matter or dark energy, I suggest that you go, after you finish watching this video, of course, do some research and find some, more capable sources, and I'll link some capable sources in the comments so you can review them. I just think that these ideas are fascinating and neat, and this all sort of fits together in sort of like these spooky ideals, right? If the universe is huge beyond our basic understanding, there almost has to be life out there, right? Like, I feel like Fox Mulder. I want to believe. String theory. String theory is a theoretical framework in physics that replaces the point-like particles of particle physics with one-dimensional objects called strings. The theory reconciles quantum mechanics with general relativity and provides a unified description of all fundamental forces in matter. Instead of treating particles as zero-dimensional points, string theory proposes that they are tiny, one-dimensional vibrating strings. Just like the different vibrations of a guitar produce different musical notes, different vibrations of these strings give rise to different particles with unique properties like mass and charge. String theory's purpose is to bridge the gap between general relativity, which describes gravity on a large scale, and quantum mechanics, which governs the behavior of particles on a subatomic level. It aims to provide a single, consistent framework that can explain all the fundamental forces of nature, including gravity, electromagnetism, and strong and weak nuclear forces. String theory requires the existence of extra spatial dimensions beyond the three that we experience, length, width, and height. These extra dimensions are thought to be curled up or compactified at incredibly small scales, making them undetectable to us. 11BX1371. I'm sorry, I don't know if that's the proper way to pronounce this, but it's the way I'm pronouncing it. 11BX1371 is a creepy, mysterious video that went viral in 2015. It's a short black and white film featuring a person wearing a plague doctor costume in a dilapidated, abandoned building. The video is filled with disturbing imagery, codes, and strange audio. The video contains hidden messages in various forms, including Morse code, cipher, and visual cues. The internet, of course, decoded these messages, and it revealed some disturbing phrases and images. The combination of the plague doctor costume, which is always creepy, especially post-COVID, the eerie setting, and the distorted audio creates an unsettling atmosphere. The video was originally sent to a Swedish tech blog with no information about the creator or purpose. And of course, its mysteriousness and the anonymity fueled speculation. What the hell is this thing? So the internet speculated. Some of the theories range from that it's a similar art project to some type of threat. The plague doctor is a central element of the video, invoking imagery of disease, death, and pandemics. The abandoned building adds to the sense of decay and isolation. The coded messages add a layer of mystery and challenge to the viewers who are trying to decipher the meaning. And the distorted soundtrack enhances the disturbing atmosphere and adds to the sense of unease. 11BX1371 quickly went viral and was the subject of discussion on social media. And it became a classic example of an internet mystery, with audiences trying to decipher its cryptic nature and unsettling content. So naturally, people want to figure out, well, what does this mean? What does this video mean? And the answer is it's probably art. Like most strange YouTube videos, other strange things that you see on the internet, it's probably art. And it's probably commentary, and it was probably designed, to be cryptic and weird to go viral. The Markovian parallax denigrate. The Markovian parallax denigrate is one of the first internet mysteries. It started in 1996 as a series of cryptic messages posted to Usenet, a pre-internet discussion system. Usenet was before my internet time, but I'm sure some of you old heads know all about it. The messages appeared to be gibberish and were all titled Markovian parallax denigrate. These posts contained seemingly random words and phrases, often completely nonsensical and out of context. They were all posted by a user identified as Susan Lindauer. And, like the last entry, or like a lot of these entries, the cryptic nature of these messages made people want to know, well, what the hell does this stuff mean? And nobody knows. No one's been able to decipher a coherent message or figure out the purpose. No one knows who Susan Londier is. Some people think she was a real person. Others believe it's a pseudonym. Others believe it might be the name of the program that created these messages. There are a few theories. The first is that this was a AI experiment. An AI experiment that didn't work too great. Others want to believe it's a secret government project. Always the government, right? Other people believe it's a elaborate hoax or early trolling on the internet. Some people believe it's a person who has mental health issues making a cry for help. Personally, if I had to guess, I would presume it was, some sort of form of early trolling. Maybe not trolling in the way that we understand trolling today, but, likely somebody who had come up with this idea to do something weird online and see what happens and see what kind of attention it could get. And, they were successful. I also like the idea of like an early AI program, though, like the program is spitting out these random things. And that theory really isn't incongruous with the idea that this is trolling, right? Like the person who was sending the messages or running the AI program in a way is sort of trolling by letting all those messages out without a meeting. Black-eyed children. Not the black-eyed peas. We're not getting it started here. Black-eyed children are a chilling urban legend that has circulated online since the late 1990s. They are children typically between the ages of 6 and 16 with pale skin and completely black eyes. There's a lot of movies about this. The black-eyed children sort of appear in a lot of different movies. The striking feature of the child or the children are the solid black eyes with no white or iris. They often have unusually pale or gray skin. Their clothing is usually described as ordinary, although outdated perhaps. The black-eyed children are often encountered at doorways, asking to be let inside a house or a car. They may claim to need to use the phone or need help. Sometimes they're allowed in, they disappear. People who encounter them report a strong sense of dread, fear, or anxiety. Again, unclear if, just seeing this weird thing makes the people afraid, or they just have that sort of, that people are already feeling afraid and anxious. And then they see them, right? The legend is often traced to Brian Bethel, a Texas reporter, and his account in 1998, where he described an encounter with two black-eyed kids in a parking lot. The story quickly went viral online. One thing that's interesting about black-eyed children story, or the black-eyed children urban legend. There are lots of stories in folklore and mythology from other times and other cultures that also encounter demons and other sort of entities with black eyes who try to use deception to gain entry into homes. My opinion on this is this is just sort of a concept that's sort of in our collective subconscious. We've heard of this stuff for so long. Maybe people are either having nightmares or hallucinating or seeing things that cause them to see, this type of entity. The singing sand dunes. Kazakhstan's singing sand dunes, very nice. Kazakhstan's singing sand dunes, or singing sands, are a natural phenomenon located in the Atlan Emel National Park near the town of Basi. The dunes are famous for producing a unique sound reminiscent of singing or humming when the wind blows or when people walk on them. The dunes are composed of a fine dry sand which can range in color from golden to reddish. And the sand has a specific size and shape that allows them to create a sound as they rub against each other. The sound's created by the vibration of the sand particles as they move, and the sound can vary in pitch and volume depending on factors such as the wind, the moisture content, and the size of the sand grains. And the singing sound may be a low rumble or a high-pitched whistle. Good news, you can go visit the singing sand dunes. If you go to Kazakhstan, probably leave the Borat references at home. I don't know that they take too kindly to the Borat stuff over there, but maybe they got over it, right? The movie's been out long enough that maybe they got over it. But go visit it. I'd love to go to Kazakhstan sometime. So maybe we can all plan a field trip there, right? Great. The Belgian UFO wave. The Belgian UFO wave refers to a series of reported sightings of UFOs that occurred in Belgium from 1989 to 1990. The sheer amount of these sightings gained significant attention in Belgium and internationally. The wave of sightings began in late 1989 and continued into 1990. And most consider the active period to have occurred between November 1989 and April 1990. Thousands of people reported seeing unidentified flying objects or strange objects in the sky, including well-documented incidents involving police officers, military personnel, and other members of the public. Witnesses described large triangular-shaped craft with bright lights in silent flight. The objects were often seen hovering or moving at high speeds. One of the most famous sightings occurred on the night of March 30th, 1990, when multiple witnesses reported seeing a massive triangular craft over the city of Eupen. The object was described as having 3 bright white lights at each corner and a red light in the center. The Belgian Air Force became involved in the investigation. 2 F-16 fighter jets were dispatched to intercept and investigate the objects. Radar operators even confirmed that unknown objects were detected, but the jets could not visually identify them. The Belgian UFO wave caused an influx of UFO researchers and scientists to be fascinated with this phenomenon. The GPAN study, conducted by the Belgian government, aimed to analyze the sightings, and the findings indicated that many reports contained credible witness accounts of UFOs. These sightings, or the wave, had widespread media attention, leading to an increase in public interest in UFO phenomena. There are lots of documentaries and articles about these events. I think I've made it pretty clear. I believe that we are not alone in the universe, right? I think it's impossible for us to be alone in the universe. However, I also think that if, a life in the universe was trying to contact us, they would do a better job of it. So when I see stuff like this, I generally assume it's a type of drone or other type of flying object that might have been involved. Maybe, this was still during, times when, the United States and Russia were building various different things. Maybe this is some sort of a United States or Russian experimental aircraft. But I don't know. I don't know what these are. And obviously Belgium didn't know what these were either. Satoshi Nakamoto. Satoshi Nakamoto is the pseudonym of a person or persons who created Bitcoin. You all know what Bitcoin is. But I bet you didn't know that the creator of Bitcoin, no one knows who did it. Probably a good idea that he or she or they are, not identifiable. Here is what we know. The concept of Bitcoin was published in October 2008 in a paper called the White Paper, detailing how it could operate as a decentralized digital currency that relies on cryptographic proof instead of trust in a central authority. Nakamoto mined the first block of the Bitcoin blockchain, known as the Genesis block, on January 3rd, 2009. The block contained a message referencing a newspaper headline, which has led to further speculation about why Nakamoto created Bitcoin. Nakamoto was actively involved in the development of Bitcoin during its early days, communicating with other developers and users via forums and email. Nakamoto contributed to the software and addressed various issues related to Bitcoin's development. In late 2010, Nakamoto gradually reduced their involvement in Bitcoin development and eventually stopped communicating entirely. The last known communication from Nakamoto occurred in 2010. At that time, they vanished from the public eye. Over the years, numerous individuals have been proposed as the real identity of Satoshi Nakamoto, including cryptographers, computer scientists, and economic theorists. Some people have been suggested to be Nakamoto are Nick Szabo, Hal Finney, and Dorian Nakamoto, among others. However, no one has proven Nakamoto's identity. As all of you know, Bitcoin has had a profound impact on finance technology and the concept of decentralized currencies. And it has led to thousands of other cryptocurrencies and a large discussion about digital currency, blockchain technology, and economic systems. and lots of people spamming Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, etc. about Bitcoin. The Rosetta Stone. No, I'm not talking about the software to help you learn, Spanish before you go to Cancun. The Rosetta Stone is a key artifact in deciphering Egyptian hieroglyphs, an ancient writing system from Egypt. It was discovered in 1799, and it played a crucial role in understanding the language and culture of ancient Egypt. The Rosetta Stone was discovered by French soldiers during Napoleon Bonaparte's campaign in Egypt. It was found in the town of Rosetta, which is now called Rashid, and is believed to date back to 196 BC. The stone features the same text inscribed in 3 scripts: hieroglyphic, Demotic, and Greek. The inscription on the Rosetta Stone is a decree praising the accomplishments and outlining the benefits of ancient Egypt. The multilingual nature allowed scholars to compare the known Greek texts to the hieroglyphic and Demotic versions. Linguist Jean-Francois Champollion, I'm sure I nailed the pronunciation, is credited with successfully decoding the hieroglyphics in the early 1820s using the Greek text as a reference. This breakthrough opened up the study of ancient Egyptian language and culture. Really, this is one of the most important archaeological finds in history. And it allowed us to be able to understand and read hieroglyphics. It's pretty far-sighted that this text was created so that someone could find it and be able to learn Egyptian, from where we are today. It is housed in the British Museum in London, where it is a popular exhibit. Ambrose Bierce. Ambrose Bierce is an American short story writer, journalist, poet, and Civil War veteran who is best known for his satirical writings. He is renowned for a sharp wit, dark humor, and insightful commentary on human nature and society. Kind of like me, right? Born in Meigs County, Ohio, Bierce grew up in a large family and was largely self-educated. He moved to Indiana for a time before eventually settling in San Francisco, California. Bierce enlisted in the Union Army during the American Civil War. His experience in the war influenced his writing. After the war, he became a journalist, and he worked for various newspapers and magazines, and people enjoyed his sharp, critical style. He is known for works that blend realism and horror with a focus on the absurdities of life. I like this guy. Sounds like my kind of content. As he got older, Bierce traveled to Mexico during the Mexican Revolution, where he supposedly sought to join the revolutionary forces. And he disappeared in 1914 under mysterious circumstances. And no one knows what happened to him. Maybe he faked his own death. Maybe something horrible happened to him. Maybe he just lived out his days, enjoying Mexico. The June 1962 Alcatraz escape attempt. I think we've all seen this movie, but the June 1962 Alcatraz escape attempt was the escape by 3 inmates from the Alcatraz Federal Penitentiary, which was located on Alcatraz Island in San Francisco Bay. This is one of the most well-known prison break attempts in American history. The escape was carried out by three men, Frank Morris and John and Clarence Anglin, who were brothers. Morris and the Anglin brothers were all convicted of robbery at some point. Frank Morris is known as the leader of the group, and they planned their escape for several months. They made makeshift tools using various items they had in prison, such as spoons, to dig through the walls of their cells. On June 11th, 1962, the three men managed to create a hole in the wall of their cells large enough to crawl through. They then made their way to an unused area of the prison, climbed up to the roof, and then climbed down to the ground, gathered their equipment, and made their way to the shoreline of the island. They constructed a raft made from raincoats, which they used to attempt the swim to the mainland. They also created dummy heads of themselves to place in their beds, tricking the guards into believing they were asleep. It's sort of wild when you think of all of the content, especially children's content involving escaping, like Looney Tunes and stuff like that, escaping from prison with a spoon, digging out, and then the trope of putting something in a bed that makes it look like someone's in the bed. There's just a lot here that has sort of permeated our culture. After they discovered the escape, a massive search operation ensued involving the Coast Guard, the FBI, and other agencies. But the escapees were never found. Some people believe they drowned in the treacherous waters of the bay, while others believe they reached the mainland and escaped. It's sort of fascinating to think that they never figured out what happened to these guys. I kind of like the idea that they sort of got out. In 2015, a letter surfaced purportedly written by John Anglin claiming he was still alive and stating that both he and Morris had made it to freedom. Now, is the letter real? Who knows, right? But I think most people like the idea of these guys escaping. It reminds me of those guys that managed to escape from the Municipal Correctional Center in Chicago, but they caught those guys pretty quickly. I just don't think that most people, I just don't really think a type of escape like this could happen in our time. So I feel like they would be able to find these guys pretty fast. The Beaumont children. The Beaumont children were three young siblings who disappeared from Adelaide Beach in Australia on January 26, 1966. Jane, Arna, and Grant. Jane was 9, Arna was 7, Grant was 4. The children took a short bus ride from their home to the beach. They were seen playing on the beach and at a nearby shop, but vanished sometime during the day. Despite an extensive search, no trace of the children has ever been found. And this case is one of Australia's most infamous unsolved mysteries. Now, the last sighting of the kids was by a postman who reported seeing the children with a tall blonde man at the beach, but this man has never been identified. A woman reported seeing a man leaving a changing room in the area with a suitcase that seemed too heavy for him, which raised suspicions, but the suitcase and that man were never found. Over the years, several individuals have been investigated as potential suspects, but none have been linked to this case. This case remains open, and the police continue to receive and investigate tips and leads about this disappearance. Now, the thing that sort of blows my mind about this case is where were the children? There was a 4-year-old, a 7-year-old, a 9-year-old, and a 4-year-old all just went to the beach by themselves with no parents. And maybe this case is one of the reasons why I have that belief. I could tell you that seems too young, especially with a 4-year-old and a 7-year-old and a 9-year-old. I mean, a 9-year-old's what? second grader to go hop on the bus and go out for a day by themselves. The Hoy-Baciu Forest. Not going to try to pronounce that one again, but it's a dense woodland located in Romania. And it's known as one of the most haunted forests in the world, often referred to as the Bermuda Triangle of Romania. There are numerous reports of unusual phenomena and paranormal activity within the forest. There are stories of people vanishing within the forest, sometimes reappearing years later with no memory of where they'd been. There are also numerous reports of UFO sightings in the area, including strange lights and even alien beings. Others have seen ghosts in the area, have a sense of being watched or followed. Electronic devices are said to malfunction or behave strangely within the forest, with compasses spinning erratically and cameras failing to operate properly. And some people claim to experience physical symptoms like nausea, headaches, anxiety, and even burns while in the forest. The forest also has some unusually shaped trees that are bent or twisted into formations. Scientists attribute the strange occurrences to natural phenomena like magnetic anomalies, infrasound, or even gases being released from the soil. And another factor is, of course, people entering the forest are primed to expect paranormal things, and therefore are more likely to interpret the things they see as paranormal things. Could also be, some type of radiation in the area that might cause the electronics to have those problems. This is a popular tourist destination in Romania. Again, I suggest you should go visit. You can take me. I'd go with you. I'll go with you if you want to go. I think it's likely that, while the saying is, scientists have these natural reasons for these things to occur, right? But those natural things are still kind of spooky, right? Like, even if it's just like a bizarre field of magnetism in the area or, high radiation in the area, it still makes the place, abnormal and strange and spooky. Just having a concrete reason for it doesn't necessarily change the fact that these things occur. So I think this is a cool story, and I think it's a cool place. It would probably be a cool place to visit. The Fiji Mermaid. The Fiji Mermaid is a famous hoax that captivated audiences in the 19th century. It was a creation made by attaching the torso and head of a monkey to the tail of a fish. It was then presented as the mummified remains of a creature that was supposedly half human, half fish, a mermaid. Of course, the Fiji Mermaid was exhibited by P.T. Barnum, the famous circus guy. And because he was a master of publicity and hype, he managed to get large crowds to go see the Fiji Mermaid. The term Fiji was a marketing term because of the, exoticism and mystery associated with the Fiji Islands. This reminds me, there was a great X-Files episode called The Fiji Mermaid. One of my favorites, and one of those episodes that is sort of burned into my mind. I remember having that episode taped. Like, I was like 10 watching the X-Files. That was sort of not where I started on spooky stuff, but it definitely was in my wheelhouse as a kid. And I remember I taped that episode and would watch it over and over and over. I was out that day that episode aired and taped the X-Files to watch that episode. Eventually, the Fiji mermaid was exposed as a hoax. I'm sure people were upset. But, it goes to show you that, like this whole idea of creating hoaxes and, making fake things and using photography tricks, that's not just something new on social media. That's something that's been going on for centuries. There's always been people creating creepy things to trick people into being creeped out. The original Fiji mermaid is believed to have been lost in a fire, but there are other examples that are in museums and private collections. I don't know. I think it would be kind of weird to just sort of have one of these that are made from an actual monkey and fish corpse sewed together. But I also know that, if you can go down some really weird paths in taxidermy on the taxidermy internet, who am I to judge, right? What do I know? The WebDriver torso. The WebDriver torso is a mysterious YouTube channel that sparked a wave of intrigue back in 2013. It would post thousands of short, abstract videos featuring geometrical shapes and colors with bizarre sounds. Most videos consist of a red rectangle moving against a blue background with other basic shapes and colors. The audio is often a series of beeps, clicks, or static noises, sometimes resembling dial tones or electronic signals. I'll play one of those videos here. This channel would upload thousands of these videos, sometimes multiple times per day for several years. Nobody knows what the channel's purpose was or who the creators were, so there's all this sort of speculation, right? Some people want to believe that this is a secret code, that maybe secret organizations are using this code to communicate with each other. Others just suggest it was some sort of automated system testing YouTube's video processing or compression algorithms. Others suggest it's an art project. And there were people who even believed it was aliens uploading to YouTube. This mystery was solved in 2014 when Google finally admitted that the WebDriver torso was indeed an automated testing system used by YouTube engineers. Sorry if you had aliens. It was designed to ensure the platform could handle high volume of uploads in various video formats. But, it still became sort of a legendary internet thing, right? The Mandela effect. This has gotten very popular in the last few years, and the Mandela effect is the collective false memories where a large group of people remember something differently than how it actually occurred. The term originated from widespread memories of Nelson Mandela dying in prison in the 1980s, although he was eventually released and became the president of South Africa. Now, the Mandela effect requires sort of a mass misinformation, right? You forgetting something isn't the Mandela effect, right? I think the most popular, I think there are a few Mandela effects that speak to a lot of people. And for me, the two big ones are the Bernstein Bears and the Fruit of the Loom cornucopia. I know it was the Berenstain Bears. I know it. I had so many of those stupid books. I remember telling my mom about this, who read these books and bought these books for me, and she didn't believe it until I pulled it out. I also have distinct memories of being in stores and staring at the Fruit of the Loom cornucopia. I can picture it. I have no idea where else I would have come up with that. Like most things, though, the internet kind of takes this stuff too far, and there's sort of a lot of theories about, oh, we're shifting realities and stuff like that. And like, no, I believe it's a mass misremembering. You know, it's sort of like the way our brains sort of play tricks on us and just sort of fill stuff in. But, you know, the Berenstain Bears, the Fruit of the Loom cornucopia, I'm still just sort of hung up on those two. There are other types of reality glitches. Some people like to call them glitches in the Matrix. I had this really weird glitch in the Matrix once where I was at my parents' house. It was a Sunday. I was watching football. It was the noon game. And I remember I was watching a game and the Kansas City Chiefs were playing. And I went to the bathroom and I came out and there was an entirely different football game on my television. And I remember switching to Fox from CBS, being like, oh, it must have changed. And the Fox game wasn't the game where the Chiefs were playing either. And it was way too early in the game. It was like the second quarter. It was way too early in the game because, you know, sometimes when the games aren't good, they'll like switch games. I remember looking online to figure out what happened and there was nothing. You know, my parents didn't have like, I wasn't watching Red Zone or anything like that. I don't know. Highway trolls. I had trouble sort of figuring this one out, what this one is supposed to mean. And really, there's sort of two options, right? There's like internet trolls in the highway context. And this is sort of what I believe this is referring to, which is, you know, where people sort of hack those signs. And, you'll see these up all the place where people hack one of those signs so it can say like zombie apocalypse happening or something like that. Though there's sort of this other idea that like, you know, there are various things that guard cities or whatever. I don't know. This one's sort of up in the air for me. I don't really have a good explanation for it. Skyquakes. Skyquakes are unexplained loud noises that seem to come from the sky. The sounds are similar to thunder or sonic booms or explosions. And they've been reported around the world. Disneyland's secret tunnels. I know what you're thinking with this one. We're not going to go there. Disneyland's secret tunnels, or utilidors, are part of an underground network designed to manage the park's operations while preserving the experience for the guest. The primary purpose of these tunnels is to allow cast members who are Disney employees to move between different areas of the park without being seen by guests. This helps maintain the illusion of the themed environment. So characters in costume or not in costume can move around without disrupting the experience. You don't want to see like, I don't know, the Marvel people in the Magic Kingdom or anything like that, right? it turns out that Disney World has a lot more of these tunnels than Disneyland, which also makes sense because Disney World was built after Disneyland. And, they built Disneyland and they said, oh, you know what we should have here? We should have an ability for people to be able to travel without being seen underground. Oh, yeah, let's build that in Disney World, right? You can also transport supplies, garbage, waste, food, other equipment behind the scenes. That way you don't have people, you don't have a guy with a whole bunch of trash, walking by Cinderella, ruining everybody's pictures, right? And really, this is a great design issue, and there are a lot of cities that sort of have underground tunnels that use this sort of design thing too, because it allows people to travel quickly throughout the area, keep the public away from this area so you're not abutted up against the public. The Man from Torrid. The Man from Torrid is an urban legend that describes a supposed case of a time traveler or interdimensional traveler. As the story goes, it begins at the Tokyo airport, where a man arrives in customs with a passport from a country called Torrid. When customs check his password, they are unable to find any record of this country, right? You've never heard of Torrid. It's not a real country. Whatever. As the story goes, the man looks very confused and insists that Torrid is real and lies between France and Spain. So you got customs being like, what are you talking about, dude? And some guy being like, what the hell? What do you mean? It's where I'm from. It's this country. So the authorities interrogate the man further, ask him questions. Where did you come from? Why are you traveling? It comes out that he speaks multiple languages and he has some sort of business dealings in this torrid country. Some versions of this story, he's taken to somewhere for further questioning and then he just disappears. And he's never seen again. Now, this makes for a great story. There's no actual documentation that this ever happened. So, I would imagine that this story might come from some sort of fiction writer, came up with this idea. And it's a good idea. It sounds like a great idea for a science fiction story, right? Elsa Gate. Elsa Gate is creepy. And this is a whole thing on YouTube, right? You guys may remember this one. Elsa Gate consists of this flood of inappropriate content marketed towards kids that had themes of violence, sexual innuendo, or other mature topics. They typically involved popular characters to attract children's views, such as Elsa from the movie Frozen, Spider-Man, Batman, other, sort of characters that people would like, Mickey Mouse, Peppa Pig. These videos would use thumbnails using these popular characters to attract views and taking advantage of the YouTube algorithm, which led to the proliferation of these videos marketed towards children. These videos managed to autoplay, or the creator of these videos managed to get these videos to autoplay after legitimate children's content, which would expose these young viewers to this very strange, alarming content. There was a massive public backlash to ElsaGate, as there should be. It's, the big problem here with ElsaGate was it wasn't just, parents who, were just letting their kids sort of run rampant on the internet. These were popping up on like YouTube Kids, which was supposed to be just specifically YouTube videos for kids. And these videos would pop up in this instance. And this led to YouTube taking more responsibility in regulating content. It updated its policies, improved its content moderation to try to limit these inappropriate videos targeted at children. But it's impossible with a site as big as YouTube for someone to personally review every single video. So the people who are creating these videos continue to find ways to beat the system to keep getting these videos out there before they get banned. It's why the term parental guidance exists and why, parents need to be aware of what their children are watching. My content isn't for kids. I know that, and I don't market my content towards kids. Who was responsible for ElsaGate? Well, there's a lot of theories about this, and some get deeply conspiratorial. I think the main idea for a lot of these videos was to just sort of create these content farms that pushed out these monetized videos to just make money, get clicks, get people interested, and that's sort of where this came from. Now, there are theories that people were making these videos specifically to harm children, and I'm not saying that some of these videos weren't designed specifically to harm children, because there are people who want to harm children for some reason, and especially with some of the violence and sexual nature of some of these videos, there's no excuse for making them. But I don't really believe that there was a collective decision, a collective unified leader of ElsaGate creating these things. I think it was more you had a bunch of content farms that just sort of kept spinning off content. And, the more inappropriate content got sort of lumped in with some of this more confusing content, which became this sort of overall ElsaGate concept. And finally, grave robbing for morons. There is a famous video, grave robbing for morons. And it's unclear if this video is real or if it's some sort of satire. The original video features a teenager in the 1980s creating a tutorial on how to rob graves, and it's unclear if it's a joke or not. There have been sort of like spin-offs from this movie, and it sort of became sort of this internet legend. And again, it's unclear if it's a comedy, if it's satirical, but as things go on the internet, the responses and the second videos and the sequels or whatever are clearly satirical, making fun of this original video. So it's one of those weird videos that sort of popped up on the internet that has no sort of explanation, and then a bunch of people sort of ran through it and created more content under this idea. And that's it. We did it. That is tier 2 of the Unsolved Mysteries and Weird Things Iceberg by Juan the Pickle. Thanks, Juan. We will start tier 3 soon. It's clear to me that this project isn't going to get done in October because of how long this is, but spooky season isn't over and Halloween. Spooky season and Christmas season sort of collide, right? And Christmas season can be spooky, so we're going to just keep going. I'm going to finish this iceberg, and we're going to do it for as long as it takes. Go ahead and follow me on Twitter and TikTok. My username is AKBrews. If you would like me to research a creepy, disturbing story, or a spooky, disturbing story, send me an email. My email address is thespookylawyer@gmail.com. Like this video, share this video. There is a playlist that has all of these Iceberg videos. Do me a favor and watch the playlist, all the way through. Send the playlist to your boss or your neighbor or your uncle and tell them to watch it all the way through, to help me out in the algorithm. Like this video, share this video. Comment, tell me your thoughts. Tell me your thoughts on some of these weird mysteries. I appreciate you watching my videos. It means a lot to me that you guys support me here. And as always, stay spooky.